All right, okay. So, we'll continue. Ayan, so introduction again. This is mycology. Ayun, so na-chika ko na sa previous sa itong introduction, no? So, again, more on, ano lang ta, emphasis on the more common, more important ones, no? Again, dili siya kay in-depth kay. Alright? So, I apologize if medyo na yung mga topics siguro na dili na ako na elaborate further. Okay, but again, I will, as I mentioned, put my trust on what you have learned sa third year. Okay? So, I think naman, mga chara to ng mga discussions ni Ma'am Faj sa Myco. So, laban lang the queen of the fungi and the viruses. So, again, for Mycoviro, dili kayo tayo na naka-in-depth. Pero of course, we'll do our best pa rin to explain them properly and emphasize lang yun those that are important. Okay, sige. Ayan. So, for the first slide, second is the references. So, unsa na mga references akong gigamit. Number one, pinaka-major yun is mayhon. Ang Myco sa mayhon deers kay nice siya pagkabahig. Nagduwa-duwa ko kung gamit ko Bailey magod kay usually mga Bailey and Scots magod sa boards. Pero pagbasa na ako sa Bailey and Scots, medyo gubot magod siya. So nagbibukod sa ko siya pag hand-eye. Pero ang mayhon is very organized, as in nice kayo siya. And it's only one unit or one chapter na dito tanan. So it's very, very organized. So ako ang murag pagbahigaan, it's based on mayhon. Okay, medyo organized with siya. Next is Murray na medical micro. It's really good put na book. If you want to read more, nice ang Myco and Viro sa Murray. Okay, so muna siya kong gibasihan po for Myco and also Viro. Ang Murray, no? Nice po kayo siya na book sa micro. So for Myco and Viro, muna siya kong masuggest ang Murray. Kay nice siya. And then, of course, Bailey and Scots. Next, you have Manual of Clinical Micro. This is an annual parang journal na gina-release by ASM, American Society of Microbiology. So, nag-base po ko dira gamay, especially sa mga procedures and culture media. So, ayan, dyan tayo nag-base. And then, of course, akong review notes sa Lemar, ni Ma'am Vanessa, top 1 sa February 2017 na board exam. And then, Bailey and Scots, again, dili kay daghan, dears, medyo ginagmay lang. Medyo gubot siya. Pero I highly suggest also to read Bailey and Scots, siguro sa board exam na. Kay basin na yung magawas dito. Pero based on experience, wala kaayo, ginagmay lang. Pero most of the time, dito sa Bailey sila tikuha ang Board of Examiners. So, I highly suggest na muna siya muhang basahon for the boards. Pero for now, Mayhon is really good and Murray. Silang doa ako masuggest. Okay, so I highly suggest that if you want to read books, make sure na more than one. Sir, na pa may time para na. Wala na actually. Pero if na may time ba, make sure lang to read more than one references para again, at least medyo broad or wide range yung mukhang knowledge. Okay, compared to just only using one. Kinayo bang mga discrepancies po? Kinayo bang mga na-mention ani na book? Wala na-mention ani na book. So, inana. So, ayan. It's best to read more than one. Okay. Ayan. Sige. So, we now start with the general characteristics of your fungi. Okay. So, your fungi or mycology is a study of your fungi. All right. And what we're focusing is the medically important fungi, medical mycology. So, the fungi that affect humans, that cause disease to humans. All right. Now, your fungi, again, are classified as thallophytes. When I say thallophytes, these are parang plant-like materials or plant-like organisms, but they don't really have the structures of a normal plant, like stem. They don't have flowers, no? They don't have mga roots, or they don't have leaves. So, thallophytes. Now, they are eukaryotes, so they have a true nucleus. They also have the organelles, no, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, etc., etc. But the difference lang is the composition of their cell wall. The composition of their cell wall is made up of chitin and glucan, and their cell membrane is, instead of cholesterol, it's ergosterol. So that's the difference, no? Very important. Because in plants, ang cell wall nila is made of cellulose, all right? And of course, the cell membrane kind cholesterol, same sa with humans. But humans, nabatay cell wall? Basic. Bio 33 yes ninyo. Nabatay cell wall, wala? Yes or no?
Wala, sir.
Final answer? Parang hindi pa kayo sure. May cell wall ba tayo or wala?
Wala, sir. Final answer.
Kuya 1-4 ha? Yes, wala tayong cell wall. Okay? So, ang plants ra ang na cell wall. Bacteria also na cell wall. You also have fungi na tayo cell wall. But again, the composition ang difference. Okay? They do not possess chlorophyll, okay? So unlike your plants. So therefore, they are incapable of photosynthesis, no? So they do not possess chlorophyll. They are larger and more complex also than your bacteria. Taxonomy, or how they are classified, is based on morphology. And other characteristics also. So the taxonomy of fungi usually is quite confusing. Okay, ako mismo ma-confuse ko. Pero so lahi ato ang approach sa pag identify nila or pag-categorize. Okay, so later we'll discuss that. Now, most of the organisms of your fungi are saprophytic in existence, meaning they live in decaying or dying na mga matter, organic matter or vegetation in the environment. No, so they are saprophytic. So ang ganahan nila kay katong mga decaying, no, katong mga namatay na charot. Ayan. Okay. Now, we have here mga terms. No, number one is your monomorphic. By the name itself, these are fungi that only have one phase in their life. No, mold siya forever, pa siyang yeast. Majority of your fungi are monomorphic, meaning they only have one phase. All right. Next, have the dimorphic or diphasic fungi. So these are fungi that are capable of existing in two forms, no? The yeast and the mold phase. Usually the yeast happens in 37 degrees Celsius or in body, in tissues, in vivo. All right. But the mold phase happens in the environment, and this is what is infective to man or muna siya itong makuha, no? So pagkuha nato sa mold phase, inside the body, it will now convert into the yeast phase. So inana siya, no? Dimorphic, no? Duha ka forms, no? Two-phase, charot. May mga friends ba? Charot, tsaka lang. Okay, eme. Okay, next you have thermally dimorphic, meaning ang ihang pagka-dimorphic is temperature dependent, meaning kailangan siya na mabot ani na temperature para mo change siya to the yeast. And if dili siya mabot ani na temperature, dili siya ma-change to yeast or dili siya ma-convert. And polymorphic fungi is more than one, all right? And another description is that in culture, it has both the yeast form and the mold form. For example, Exophyala species. Now, example, it grows first as a yeast, no, colony, and then after mo mature siya, may mo siyang mold, inana. So that's the point of polymorphic, no? So possible for the more than one. All right, and also both yeast and your mold forms happen in culture. All right, so that's for the general characteristics. Again, very important thing to note: the composition of the cell wall, chitin. All right, and your cell membrane, ergosterol. Okay, ayan, sige, don't forget that. Okay, next we describe now the two major forms of your fungi, your yeast versus molds. No, so your yeasts, again, dili no, charot. Your yeasts are single vegetative cells, no? So mga unicellular, no? Sila itong mga unicellular nato na fungi. All right? Now the molds, these are the multicellular ones, okay? And usually they are filamentous in appearance, meaning thread-like, mura sila mga filaments, all right? And they have structures known as hyphae, okay? So later ito na i-describe, no? So hyphae, ayan. So yeast again, unicellular, all right? Vegetative, single na mga cells. The molds are the multicellular ones, all right? And the molds are composed of filamentous structures. Again, they are filamentous in appearance, all right? And they are composed of your hyphae, all right? Sige. Next, for culture or colonies, the fungi, ilahang colonies, the yeast, the colonies of the yeast usually resemble that of bacteria. No, they can be mucoid, they can be creamy, opaque, or pasty colonies. So they're really similar to your bacteria. As you can see, di ba? Meron siyang bacterial colony. Now, for your molds, they are usually fluffy, no? Cottony in appearance or medyo bagga sila. Alright? So they are cottony, powdery, woolly, fuzzy, no? Fluffy basta. So meron siyang cotton, no? So inana yung appearance. So again, the colonies of yeast really look like bacteria, no? So in the laboratory, if recover mo og yeast usually in primary plating sa bacteria, they really look like colonies of bacteria, no? So usually sa gram stain makita na siya, pero in colonies mismo, it can be difficult to differentiate if bacteria ba siya or yeast. Pero most of the time, the yeast colonies are quite larger compared to bacterial colonies. Okay, pero again, in appearance, they look the same. All right, ayan, sige. That's for the colonies of your yeast and molds. Next, you have reproduction. For yeasts, usually they are reproduced by budding, no? Or a part of the mother cell will pinch off, ayan, budding, to produce the daughter cell. And this is known as blastoconidium, all right? Now, for the molds, they can reproduce asexually. And when they reproduce only asexually, they are known as imperfect fungi, all right? And they can also reproduce sexually. And if they have a sexual stage, or if they can reproduce sexually, then it is termed as the perfect fungi. O, di ba, imagine you are you are called perfect if naka-sexual stage. And imperfect if wala, di ba? Grabe naman. Okay, ayan. Next, for identification. For yeast, again, usually biochemical, molecular methods, and also macroscopic and microscopic. But ang morphology sa macroscopic and microscopic usually are similar. So that's why we rely on biochem, serological tests also, and molecular methods. For molds, usually we look at colony morphology, but again, colony morphology, similar to bacteria, it's only used as a presumptive identification, all right? But for molds, again, some of them, they also look the same, all right? So we look at the microscopic structures, all right? Mga reproductive structures such as Connivia, the hyphae also, we look at those, no? Ayan. So again, that's for the identification of the molds, all right? We can also use naman mga molecular methods and serological tests also for identification. Okay, all right. Now we go now to your pigmentation, no? So in your fungi, they can be pigmented or not. So if they are not pigmented, they are known as hyaline or moniliaceous. Wait, so moniliaceous or hyaline. So wala sila pigmentation, no? Moniliaceous. All right? That's the other term for hyaline. So they don't have any pigments. All right. And in contrast, the opposite is, of course, the pigmented one known as phaeoid or dematiaceous. All right. So hyaline or moniliaceous and phaeoid or dematiaceous. All right. Now, the phaeoid or dematiaceous molds, they have melanin in their cell wall. That's why they are pigmented, no? And nasa picture. So as you can see, hyaline, ayan, medyo clear lang, walay color, no? It's transparent, no? And then you also have phaeoid or dematiaceous, dark, okay, dark color. All right, sige. Ayan. Next, we go now to your fungal structures. Now, your fungal structures, we'll start first with your hyphae. Your hyphae usually is the parang fundamental structure of your filamentous fungi or the molds, no? Your yeasts can also produce hyphae, all right? But seldom lang yun na true hyphae na inanig yun. Usually, the yeast produce pseudo-hyphae. Okay, so later, ito na siyang, ayan, ito i-define. So the hyphae, again, is the basic element or the fundamental structure of your filamentous fungi, the molds, all right? But again, the yeast can also produce hyphae, but seldom ra mo produce of true hyphae. Usually, what they produce kay pseudo-hyphae. All right, so ito na i-describe. Hyphae can be categorized into two types. You have septate and aseptate. No, when you say septate hyphae, these are hyphae na naay cross walls or naay mga septations, no, naay mga divisions. Ayan, na siya cellular separations or cross walls. Septate. Now another one is in contrast, aseptate or sinocytic. They don't have cross walls. All right, so ito na siyang i-draw para mas maklaro. Ayan. So again, di ba, we mentioned that your septate hyphae, okay? Septate hyphae, ayan, naa siya septation. So number of divisions, no, in the hyphae. Whereas your aseptate or sinocytic, wala gyud. So ana lang siya. Mga nuclear na siya. It's multinuclear pero single cell. Kani siya, it's multi-celled because again na siya septations. Okay? Now, your aseptate or sinocytic usually, it's a characteristic found in the zygomycetes. Okay, these are a group of your fungi. So yung makakita ka aseptate usually, then that belongs usually to your zygomycetes. But then, microscopic identification further discovered that your zygomycetes may also have septations, pero dili sige. So the more correct term daw, according to Mayhon, is sparsely septate. Ayan, so ano siya mga other terms, no? Pwede na sparsely septate or aseptate, okay? Because originally or historically, no, your zygomycetes are found or were established to be aseptate, or meaning wala din sila cross walls or wala sila septations. But again, according to Mayhon, further microscopic examination revealed that zygomycetes can also have septations pero dili sige. That's why the more correct term daw is sparsely septate. Alright, pero most of references, they still use the word aseptate. So, ayan, pwede lang silang gamiton aseptate, sparsely septate, sinocytic. So again, kanina mga terms, usually they describe the hyphae of the zygomycetes. Okay, because again, they are characteristic of that. No, they have those type of hyphae na aseptate or sparsely septate or cenocytic. All right, okay. Next, the type of hyphae is your pseudohyphae. Now, these pseudohyphae, again, is caused or is found in your yeasts. Okay, so may siyang hyphae na ma-produce sa yeasts. Okay, so these are chain of cells, all right, that is formed from budding, and there is constriction at the formation, all right, and they form branches that begin with septation, and they have terminal cells smaller than other cells. Sige. So the true hyphae, as you can see, dears, is parallel, no, and medyo straight, no, yahang, or tube-like yahang appearance. But for your pseudohyphae, these are the mother cells, ayan, and then siya bud, ayan, and then padayon, okay? So in ana imuhang pseudohyphae, it's made up of cells, okay, from the bud, okay, and kaning start niya is quite constricted, or meaning na siya murag ni-constrict siya, alright, at the point of origin. Okay, maot akong drawing, no? Pero I hope na-gets lang to siya. So it's budding, mga cells na nag-elongate, alright? Or from budding. So, kani siya nag-bud na po ning usa, nag-bud until mag-form siya og elongated na formation. And that is known as pseudohyphae. So it's not similar to the hyphae, the true hyphae of your molds, okay? That is like ano lagi siya, like tube-like, no? And hindi siya composed of mga budding cells, okay? Your pseudohyphae, again, is caused by the budding cells usually found in yeasts, okay? All right. Now, other types of hyphae, usually, ano lang, pang describe silang appearance, you have spiral hyphae, if the hyphae is coiled, all right? Next, you have antler hyphae, if they look like antlers, no? Kanang sa head sa mga moose, sa mga deer, inana. And then, racket hyphae, mura siya og racket, sa tennis racket, inana. All right? So based on their appearance lang. So these are just some of the descriptions of your hyphae. All right. So for some pictures, ayan. So as you can see, septate. Ayan, septate. Septate. Ato na lang siyang i-zoom. Ayan. So septate. As you can see na cross walls good. Ayan. Septations. Next for aseptate. As you can see, smooth lang yung appearance. Okay, wala siya katong septations. All right, and again, that's characteristic of your zygomycetes. And then next, you have the pseudohyphae. As you can see, these are cells lang that elongate from budding of the cells. All right, and again, this is seen sa imuhang yeasts. Okay. Next, you have spiral hyphae. As you can see, spiral. Ayan, nag-spiral yang hyphae. Okay. Next, antler. Di ba mo siya antler sa imuhang moose or sa reindeer. And then last, you have racket. Di ba mo siya og racket. Mura siya o kanang tennis racket. Okay, ayan. So that's for the different types of hyphae. So ang hyphae is the basic element yun, no, of your filamentous molds or filamentous fungi. All right. Now, once these hyphae are grouped together, they are now known as your mycelium. Now, the mycelium is usually seen sa mga culture or sa environment kung asa sila nag-give na grow. All right. Now, the mycelium is again mat. Mura siya og mat, no, mura siya og mat, no, doormat, so mat-like structure, they're composed of hyphae, and there are two types. You have the aerial hyphae and the vegetative portion. So the vegetative portion ang nasa ilalom, again, this one, and the vegetative portion are the hyphae, okay, or basta group of hyphae na it's known as mycelium. So the mycelium or vegetative, sila ang mo-anchor sa imuhang fungi sa agar or sa imong environment, and sila ang musuyop, no? Sila ang mo-absorb of nutrients, no, from the environment or from the agar. Now, the upper ones is your aerial, nasa pangalan na, no? Aerial or the reproductive portion. So sila ang produce sa mga spores, sa mga conidium, alright, para mo disperse ang fungi, alright, para maka-establish siya og another infection or maka-establish siya og another habitat or kung asa magani siya mapadpad. Okay, so kanina sa taas, no, dira ang mga conidia, mga sexual structures, again, necessary for reproduction para siya mo spread. Okay? So aerial, nasa taas, and of course, vegetative or the thallus, siya ang nasa ilalo. And again, siya ang mo absorb sa nutrients. Okay? Siya ang mo anchor sa fungi sa substrate. Okay. Alright. Ayan. So that's for the mycelium. Alright. Mycelium, again, groups na siya of fungi, okay? And groups of hyphae, sorry. Groups of hyphae, again, mycelium, and they form, all right? They form a mat-like structure. And again, this is known as mycelium, all right? Now, here's an example of a bread, di ba, na mold. So, as you can see, na may lab procedure sa una na ano mo bread. So, ayun, so I hope na mo na-learn ato, di ba? So, again, here's an example of a bread mold. So again, this is the vegetative na hyphae or mycelium or hyphae lang kaisa. And then you have the aerial. Now, another structures, these are your stolon and rhizoids. Your rhizoids are root-like structures. So, mga roots, okay, root-like structures that again, yung purpose is mo anchor sa substrate. Now, the stolon is a hyphae, okay? It's a hyphae that connects other groups of hyphae, all right? So again, stolon, again, is a hypha na siya, that connects groups of hyphae. And rhizoids, sa pangalan na, di ba, rhizoids, these are root-like structures, okay, that anchor the fungi sa substrate pa rin. Okay? Ayan. So that's for the characteristics of your hyphae and mycelium. Alright, sige. Now, for the spores, okay, involved in asexual reproduction. Sige. Before we proceed, any questions so far, dears? Na mo'y wala na sabtan or medyo carry lang so far? Okay? Nandiyan pa ba kayo?
Carry lang, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sige.
sir.
Alright, sige. Very good. Sige, thank you. Now, we go now to reproduction of your fungi or your fungi, no? They can reproduce asexually or sexually. Now, na ibang fungi na walay sexual stage, asexual lang na. Alright, ayan. Now, we then go to the sexual reproduction. So, this is based on Delos. Delos is a book in Microdent. So, you can use that. Pero, nag-lisod ko pangitaan niya sa online. Wala ko kitang PDF. So, but it's a nice book din sa micro. So again, these are the spores involved in sexual reproduction. Now, usually, if sexual reproduction, ang atong gamitin na term kay spores. Okay? So, number one is ascospores. Ascospores are found in a sac-like structure known as ascos. So, ayan, nasa pangalan na ascospores. Next, you have zygospores. Zygospores is from the fusion of duha identical cells arising from the same hypha. So, same hypha na ay two same cells, all right? And then mag-fuse sila together, they form the zygospore. Ayan. The oospores are fusion of two cells from separate hypha, all right? So, ang imuhang zygospores kay from identical hypha or from the same hypha yun, whereas your oospores is from different, no, non-identical hypha. And for basidiospores, they are contained in a club-shaped basidium. Ayan. So, here's the basidium, club-shaped, and then ilang i-produce ang basidiospore. Okay? So, ascospore, ascos, zygospore, duha ka hypha or duha ka cells in the same hypha. Nag-meet sila, nag-fuse to form the zygospore. And then you have the oospore, different hypha, nag-meet po, alright? And then you have the basidiospore. It is from a basidium, club-shaped basidium, and then i-produce siya og spore, and that is known as your basidiospore. These spores usually, or is what we use for identification, no? Ato siyang i-classify if makaproduce ba siya ascospores, makaproduce ba siya zygospores, or basidiospores, alright? Generally, again, when you say sexual reproduction, spores ato ang term. And for asexual or asexual, we then use the term Connivia, alright? But in some references, usually ginayuse lang siya interchangeably. Meaning, pwede siyang balik-balik, like ka ng interchange, no? Like, pwedeng ubang references na spores ang ilang pasabot, pero asexual siya. So, I hope di na mo ma-confuse. Pero pwede siyang ma-interchange, okay? But generally, if spores ang ngalan, it means sexual. And if Connivia, asexual. The Connivia, again, they arise from the side of the hypha. Okay? So, sa side, sa kilid. And they could be catenate, meaning in chains, or echinulate. When you say echinulate, nasa yung mga spine-like productions or roughy ang appearance. Now, the spores produce singly or multiply in long chains or clusters, and they are produced by conidiophores. So, ang conidiophores are mga stalks, no, or mga branches na mo produce sa imuhang Connivia. Alright, so there are two types pwede. You have microconidia and the macroconidia. So, macroconidia na sa pangalan na, large and multicellular. For microconidium, it's small and usually single cell. Alright? And kani mga microconidia, usually it's very important for the dermatophytes. Kaya mo siya itong alantawon, alright? For their identification. Okay? So, macroconidia and microconidia. Next, you have the blastoconidia. Alright? So, blastoconidia is usually seen sa mga yeasts. Alright? They develop daughter cells, no? They pinch off again. So a mother cell, mo pagawa siya gamay sa iyang cytoplasm or mo create siya o parang bud scar, no? Iyang busutan niyang self and then mo gawas tong gamay na version, okay, which is the blastoconidium. And then once ready na siya or ready na siya mo tangtang or mawala, mo separate, no? Ang imuhang daughter cell. Alright? So that's Blastoconibia. Alright? Again, that's Blastoconibia. And pagtangtang ani deers na siya bud scar, no? Bud scar. B-U-D-S-C-A-R. Bud scar. So mara siya point kung asa ni detach ay mga Blastoconidium. Mara siya samay, no? Bud scar. Okay. That's for Blastoconibia. Again, usually seen sa mga yeasts, no? Mga yeast cells. Next, you have your Chlamydoconidia. So your Chlamydoconidia are usually thick-walled, resistant, and they may round up and enlarge sa mga hyphal cells. So there are types, no, of your Chlamydoconidia. It could be terminal, meaning na siya sa end sa hypha. Intercaliary na siya within, all right? And sessile na siya sa kilid, all right? So again, terminal na siya sa end of the hypha. You have intercaliary within the hypha, and then sessile the side of the hypha. All right, so that's for Chlamydoconidia or your chlamydospores. Okay, all right. Next, you have arthrospores or arthroconibia. So they happen by fragmentation, meaning imong hypha, okay. All right. So hypha siya, all right? Hypha, and then nag-fragment. Ayan, nag-fragment until mo form siya og individual na mga cells. Okay? Ayan. That's for Arthroconibia. So nag-fragment siya, all right? And in between the Arthroconibia are your disjunctor cells, all right? These disjunctor cells are empty usually. Ayan. Wala din nabutang ako diri. In between are known as disjunctor cells. Ayan, disjunctor. So muna siyang mga pagitan sa in-between sa mga arthrospores, okay, or arthroconibia. Ayan. These are empty lang para mo differentiate or mag-separate sa duha ka arthroconibia. Alright? So yung appearance again, fragmentation and usually rectangular in shape. Alright? Or barrel-shaped yung spores. Okay? So arthroconibia. So usually makita natin na later sa mga Coccidioides immitis, Geotrichum candidum, you have also Trichosporon. So later we'll look into that. Alright? So Arthroconibia, fragmentation. So nag-fragment. Okay? Nagbuak-buak siya ba? Ayan, fragmentation. Alright, okay. Next, you have your sporangiospores. Your sporangiospores, unique to your zygomycetes. Alright? So your sporangiospores, here's an example of the structure. You have, again, the stolon, and then you have the sporangiophore or hypha that contains the sporangia, alright? And inside the sporangia are the sporangiospores. So sporangia kay sac, okay? And inside the sac is the spores, your sporangiospores. Alright? Okay, so again, this is common or unique lang siya sa zygomycetes. Okay, na mga molds. Alright. Next, you have Porochenidia. These are conidia that are coming from a pore, ayan, in the parent cells. So Porochenidia. Next, you have Fialoconnibia. Tube-shaped ang conidia that can be branched. Ayan, so as you can see, tube. Alright, medyo pataas siya in chains, alright, and it is produced by a fialide, alright, and katong major branch or dako na branch is known as the conidiophore. So ina na siya dears, ang dako na branch is usually the conidiophore, ang term, or sporangiophore. Meaning dito siya nag-start. And then if mag-branch siya o ginagmay, it could be called fialide, example here, or it could be annelide, this one, ayan. So muna siya o vase shape, okay, vase shape ihang conidia. All right, and the outer wall may have sawtooth appearance. Okay, so masyag na ay ngipin pagtangtang or pag-release sa conibia. All right, so annelid ang medyo gagmay ng mga branches. All right, pero the major ones are known as mga sporangiophore, anellophore, ayan, conidiophore. Okay, depending on the type, no, of your conibia. Okay, so that's for the structure. So the larger ones again, sporangiophore, conidiophore, dito siya nag-start, no? Dala siya nagikan. Okay, and then pwede siyang mo branch into gagmay ng mga branches. And dito na ta mo gamit og annelid, no, fialides, no, depende on the structure. All right? Okay, sige. So I hope that you understand that. Okay, sige. Now we go na to the phylum, no? As mentioned, medyo confusing atong taxonomy. All right? But there are 3 well-established phyla of fungi. This is from Bailey and Scott. Number 1 is your Zygomycota. All right? So again, as mentioned, siya tong aseptate. Okay? But now, it is classified into Glomeromycota. Now, this phylum or Yeah, this phylum consists of the order Mucorales and Entomophthalales. So these are the mucormycetes, no? These are the Rhizopus, Mucor, Rhizomucor, Caninghamella. All right, so later we'll understand that. Usually, the zygomycetes are involved in opportunistic infections, okay? Sila nang usually makakos ana. So mga mucormycetes, mucormycosis. All right. Now, the mode of asexual reproduction is sporangiophores or sporangiospores. And for sexual, it's zygospores. Next, you have ascomycota. Your ascomycota produces ascospores as the sexual and Connivia for asexual. Now, a very important characteristic, dears, is the production of your anamorph, teleomorph, and synanomorphs. No? So when you say an anamorph, okay, this is the asexual form, all right? The teleomorph is the sexual form, all right? And the synanomorphs are the different types of anamorphs. So example, teleomorph is, example, si Pseudodiscaria boydii. Your Pseudodiscaria boydii is the teleomorph, meaning siya ang produce og sexual na stage or siya ang capable of sexual reproduction. Pero dapat siya asexual form, and this is known as the anamorph. Ang ihang asexual form is Pseudosporium, Apiospermum, and Graphium. Silang duha, these are anamorphs. Pero they are collectively called the synanomorphs. Basta gani if ang teleomorph or if na fungi na duha or more than one iyahang asexual stage, then these are known as synanomorphs. Okay? Pero ang individual form is known as anamorph. Okay? So I hope na-get na to siya. Teleomorph is the sexual form of the fungi. Anamorph is the asexual. And ang synanomorphs is the different asexual forms of the same fungus. Alright? So if more than one imuhang anamorph, synanomorphs na ang tawag. Okay? Alright, so that's for the different mga stages. And muna siya challenging po sa fungi because different names, iyahang asexual and sexual form. So medyo confusing din siya. No? So example, si Histoplasma capsulatum, iyahang teleomorph kay Edgelomyces. No? So daming change, ang daming names. No? So muna siya challenging po sa myco. Alright? Ayan, sige. Next, you have Basidiomycota. This is the phylum of your Cryptococcus, neoformans, example lang. Mode of asexual production is budding or spore formation, and for sexual is your basidiospores, so production of basidiospores. And then the last phylum is the fungi imperfecti or imperfecti. These are the fungi that walay sexual stage or wala siya sexual reproduction na discover. All right, and it usually contains the largest of the organisms that cause mycosis to humans. All right. Again, no mode of sexual reproduction has been identified or wala gid siya or wala pa na-discovered. Okay? Fungi imperfecti or your Deuteromycota. Okay? So, these are the phyla natong i-discuss. Alright? Pero again, in our discussion, I think mo pwede ibuhat ni Ma'am Farja third year, we will not discuss the species based on taxonomy, but we will discuss them based on the type of mycosis na ilahang gikos. All right. So here's a table. This is from a different reference. This is from Murray. So again, just focus lang on the organism group and their morphology. All right. But again, as I mentioned, medyo confusing ang taxonomy. So to spare us from that confusion, we'll just discuss it in a different way. All right. So that is through the different types of mycosis na ilahang gikos. Okay. So mycosis, all right, by the name itself, these are the infections that your fungi cause. No. It's termed as mycosis. Ayan. So, they are categorized, again, on the basis of the site in the body na ilang gikos. Pwedeng cutaneous, pwedeng superficial, pwedeng systemic, and subcutaneous. Alright. Now, mycetismus, do not be confused, is mushroom poisoning beers. Okay? So, baka lumabas. Alright? Mycetismus, mushroom poisoning. Your mushroom is still fungi din naman. So, once makakaon kag mushroom na poisonous, ayan, mycetismus. Mycosis is infection by the modes and the yeasts. All right, ayan. Now here's a table. This is from Murray again of the different organisms that cause the different type of mycosis, starting from superficial until systemic until opportunistic. Okay, so muna siya to ang flow of discussion here. So we'll discuss the organisms based on mycosis. All right, based on the type of mycosis na ilahang ginakos. Okay? Alright, ayun. Sige. So before we proceed to the first type, any questions, any clarifications so far? Ayan. So I hope na-get siya to dears, no? Ayan. Any questions? Okay. So I hope na-get siya. Carry pa? Laban pa? Okay. Sige. Alright, so we'll start first with the first type of mycosis, your superficial mycosis. So nasa pangalan na superficial, it only affects the very outermost layer of the the skin, okay? Alright, now they all elicit little to no host immune response because again, nara siya sa surface, no? So possible lang na walay tissue involvement, walay dili ma-trigger yung mga immune system, alright? And majority of them are for cosmetic purposes lang or cosmetic problems rather than medical problems because again, they cause changes in the skin, no? So if cosmetic lang din siya, more on cosmetic problems rather than medical. Ayan. So again, very superficial lang, superficial, no? Those very outermost layers of the skin. Usually superficial cutaneous mycosis, medyo same lang sila o gina-colonize. Alright? Ayan. Now that's for the superficial mycosis. We'll start first with the first disease, that is your pityriasis or tinia versicolor. Ayan. Now, tinia versicolor, these are pale patches, no? Na mga discoloration, mga patches in mga skin. If you are dark skinned, usually pale patches siya. But if you're light skinned, no, you're white or light skinned, ang colors yung mga patches kay fawn or light brown, all right? In individuals again with a fair complexion. And again, the causative agent is of course your Malassezia furfur. Ayan, so I think muna siya yung na-remember lang. Charot. Malassezia furfur, again, lipophilic. So with the name itself, it likes fats or lipids. It requires exogenous lipids for growth. No, kailangan siya og fats para siya mutubo. All right. Now morphology, these are yeast na mga cells. All right. They produce Fialoconnibia, all right, or nasa yung mga Connivia, and then ay lip or collarette around the initiation on the parent cell. So usually, under examination, di lang ito siya makita unless ato siyang stain, all right? But majority ato ang pag-diagnose sa Malassezia furfur is through KOH, di ba? Skin scrapings, ayan. So, and in skin scrapings, di ba? Spaghetti and meatballs appearance. Ayan, very press the buzzer, no? And very common na yun siya. But sa spaghetti meatballs appearance, nako press the buzzer agad-agad. It's Malassezia furfur. So for laboratory procedures, the idea sa myco, sa last part na siya sa lecture. Okay, so ito sang giuna itong mga agents. Okay, so again, skin scrapings, 10% KOH. Alright, spaghetti and meatballs appearance. It can be stained with your hematoxylin eosin and PAS, per iodic acid shift. Lesions may fluoresce yellowish color in Wood's lamp. And if you want to culture it, dapat ang media, all right, your media, culture media should be overlaid with olive oil. So meaning, imuhang culture media, butangan ni mo mantika, butangan ni mo olive oil for it to grow. And the colonies will be cream colored to tan. Ayan. So again, Malassezia furfur, lipophilic. All right, okay. So again, pityriasis versicolor, tinia versicolor. All right, or sa Bisaya, alap-ap, no? This is alap-ap. Okay, ayan. So here's an example, of course. I think, maybe some part of your life nakatry ani. Samot na sa puberty, no? Mga kanang padulo na o nasa puberty stage, no? Mga early adolescents. Ayan. So that's for pityriasis versicolor. Again, if you are dark skinned, ayan, medyo pale ang imuhang mga patches. But if you are white skinned or fair skinned imuhang body or imuhang skin, then imuhang patches are usually light brown in color. Okay. Now here is an example of skin scrapings, KOH, as you can see, di ba? Meron spaghetti and then yung mga meatballs. So kaning mga spaghetti are the pseudohypha, okay, or the hyphae, and then kaning mga circle are the yeast cells. Okay? All right. So spaghetti and meatballs appearance. And here are your colonies, di ba? So you can see again, pwede siyang tan or brown. Again, kailangan ay olive oil for it to grow. All right. Now, pityriasis versicolor happens usually in puberty because again, di ba, usually in puberty, mas active atong mga oil glands, no? Mga sebaceous glands. That's why it will activate the Malassezia furfur sa skin to become or to cause this mga pigmentation. All right. Now, Malassezia furfur usually is a common cell, no? Common flora of the skin. So possible dito makuha. Alright? So again, if sebaceous glands kay activated, oily imuhang skin, exposed po ka sa sun, pwede. Ayan, sige kang ma-expose sa sun, pwede siyang maka-trigger to form these rash or mga patches. Aside from that also, possible siya direct contact, no? Or indirect contact from a person with pityriasis versicolor. Example, na siya mga clothes ba? Or na mga skin residues na pwedeng mapunta nimo, then possible that's the source of infection. Majority, again, it's because of oily skin, exposure to sun, no? That's why it's common sa mga puberty, mga children or mga teenagers, no? Mga early adolescents. Okay, ayan, that's for malassezia furfur. But again, it's not that invasive din naman. It's not life-threatening, but matambalan na siya through mga ointments, no? Mga topical, mga skin ointments. Okay, that's for pityriasis versicolor, tinia versicolor. All right. Next, you have Tinia nigra. All right, your Tinia nigra, ang iyahang macules or iyahang skin pigmentation is black. All right, so na yung mga pigmentation sa skin. All right, and it's usually black, and it most often occurs on your palms. All right, or sa soles. All right. Now, this is caused by Hortea werneckii. All right, so this is caused by Hortea werneckii, or iyahang old name is Exophiala werneckii. So it is a dematiaceous, dematiaceous na mold, all right? And it has septate hyphae and budding cells. So still the same skin scrapings, H&E staining. Your culture, there could be black molds producing Fialoconnibia, all right? The colonies start with a brownish coloration and then becomes olive to greenish black in maturation, paggulang sa culture. Ayan. So here's an example. Your Tinia nigra, again, as you can see, black, no? On the skin, and then this is your morphology. Again, Fialoconnibia ang iyahang appearance, and then ang colonies again, kaya pwede siyang black sa old culture. Ayan. So as you can see, ang Tinia nigra, okay, black, no, meron siyang birthmark, or it can be misdiagnosed as melanoma, no, because meron siyang malignant melanoma. So possible noon na magka-biopsy, no, which is unnecessary, all right? Because simple examination of this using skin scrapings or KOH, makita na ni mga hypha, mga Fialoconnibia. All right. Now again, this is usually acquired from direct or inoculation, no? Example, makatouch ka, imuhang tiil or imuhang kamot o area in the environment that contains the fungus, possible dito mo siya nakuha. All right. So that's for Tinia nigra. Again, caused by Hortea werneckii. Okay, that's for Tinia nigra. By the name itself, diba, nigra, so mura siya, again, I'm not racist ha, no, ano lang. Pero by the name itself, diba, nigra, it's more pointing to black colored. Okay, ayan, so black color. Tinia nigra. Okay. Next, you have white piedra. Usually the piedra are causing, no, or it's affecting the hairs, all right? So these are superficial infection of the hair. There is mga nodules, no, or swelling along the hair strand. Your white piedra usually kay soft siya, okay? Soft siya. And it's caused by Trichosporon species. Okay. Now, morphology, hyphal elements, Blastoconnivia and Arthroplania. For culture, we culture it without, we use culture media without cycloheximide because your Trichosporon is sensitive to cycloheximide, and it will lead, or it will produce cream-colored, dry, wrinkled colonies. Now, your white piedra, diba? Here's an example. Ayan, these ones. So these are dandruff beers, okay? It's much more bigger. It's bigger, and then medyo ano siya, soft din siya. And if mo siyang i-crush, okay, or mo siyang i-examine, pag crush, di mo mga makita. Arthroplania, mga hypha po, which is characteristic of Trichosporon species. Okay? Ayan. So again, white piedra, naroon siya sa outer layer of the hair. Okay? Sa hair. Alright. And it's colored white. And in contrast to that is your black piedra. Because again, iyahang nodules or iyahang mga swelling na mako sa hair is colored black. Alright? Small, dark nodules that surround the hair shafts. And it's caused by Piedraia or Piedria hortii. Okay? Piedraia hortii or Piedraia hortii. Alright. Now the morphology, it produces ascospores, spindle-shaped, pigmented mold, brown to reddish black. Now, for examination, again, we examine the nodule. Ato siya i-crush, okay? Or ato siyang i-crush, no? And pag sulod na, makita na mga ascospores, alright? And there is a cement-like substance na siya murag semento, no? Murag na siya hard substance that let it stand or let it stick to the hair, alright? Cement-like substance. So here's an example of a hair with black piedra. As you can see, muna siya ang imuhang black piedra. So na-infect niya ang hair. Alright, and ang sulod ani kay mga ascospores, alright, pag atong pag-examine. And here's an example of Piedria hortii, okay, iyahang morphology, okay? So hyphal elements pa rin, which we can see here, All right, and mga ascospores. Okay, so that's for Piedria hortii. So that's for the superficial mycoses. Again, usually outer layers lang dito the skin. Tinia versicolor, your tinia nigra, the white piedra, and the black piedra. So for the piedra, usually makuha siya from direct contact yapon in a patient that has piedra, all right? Or pwede pong exposure to the environment. Okay. Your white piedra ideas usually, ang hair na yung ma-affect, kaning white, it's usually sa pubic hair or sa armpit. Okay? So axilla na mga hairs. Whereas for black piedra, usually sa scalp siya na mga hair. Okay? So careful dyan. And piedra usually can be removed through proper hygiene. So kato po na yung mga piedra usually wala sila proper hygiene. Okay? So make sure to wash everything. Okay? That has hair in it. Okay? Wash properly. Okay? Practice proper hygiene. Okay? Ayan. So that's for the superficial mycoses. Ayan. Any questions so far before we proceed to the next? So far. Ayan ha, careful na, examine yourself. Tapos mo yung mga ano dyan, mga black piedra, white piedra, charot. Ayan. So inana natong discussion dear sa like more on dagan jud ang tables ani na notes okay para mas summarize na siya good and concise, okay? Alright. So more to siya. Medyo ano ra gid siya, straightforward lang ato mga discussions. Okay. Any questions so far? Any clarifications?
Wala pa, sir.
Okay ra? Na-carry lang, na-understood lang to siya so far? Okay ra? So that's for superficial. So superficial good, no? Nara siya sa outer layers of the skin. Now for cutaneous, again as mentioned, usually same ra gyud og description ang cutaneous and superficial. Ang cutaneous mycosis, ang pinaka-important lang is that the organisms really use keratin, all right? Or they are keratinophilic and keratinolytic. Okay, so keratinophilic meaning they love keratin and keratinolytic ila yung bungkagon or gamiton ang keratin. And for cutaneous mycosis, usually atong gina-refer to are the dermatophytes. Okay, keratinophilic, keratinolytic. All right, and usually they cause tinia, all right, or ringworm. Because again, it's a misnomer or sayop siya ng ngalan actually. But before, it was before sa mga olden times, no, they thought na ringworm is caused by a worm, all right? Or a burrowing worm. And ang appearance magud niya kay mura siya og worm, no? Ring iyang appearance, diba? Tinia. That's why it's called as ringworm. But again, now we know it's not caused by a worm, but a fungi. All right. Now there are different types of tinia depending on the area sa body niyang ginakos. Number one is tinia capitis, of course, sa imuhang scalp, sa head, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Tinia barbae sa beard, all right, sa mga men, all right. Tinia corporis sa trunk of the body, all right. Tinia crudis or jock itch, groin, sa imuhang Tagalog, this is hadhad, okay? Or in Bisaya kay, kalimut ko sa ngalan, basta hadhad sa Tagalog, alright? I forgot the name sa Bisaya, sorry dears, I'm not, Bisayas at my mother tongue, pero tama, no, dili na ako mother tongue ang Bisaya. But anyway, ayan, so, basta, okay. Basta hadhad, okay. Tinia manuom is hands. Ayon sa 2 dears.
Bun-i?
Dili siya bun. Bun-i is tinia corporis sa body. Alright.
Pilasan, sir.
Pilas, ay tawag sana? Kanang...
Pilas.
Pilas, yes, that one. Pilas, tama. Alright. Pero hadhad siya sa Tagalog, okay. Alright, tama. Thank you, dears. Okay. Tinia manuom, wala na ko nabutang dira, dears, is your hands, okay. Tinia pedis, this is alipunga, alright, athlete's foot, ayan. Tinia onguyum or onychomycosis sa nails. Ay kanina po wala na ko nabutang, tinia implicata. This is specifically caused by Trichophyton, letter T, concentricum. This is confined only to the islands of South Asia, South Pacific and sa mga Asia na mga countries, alright. So very, very endemic lang yun, specific to a particular islands in the South Pacific and Asia, alright. So don't worry, ako na pong i-upload ng PowerPoint. So if di mo ganang mo take down note, okay na po. Ako na siyang i-upload. Basta tinia manuom sa hands and tinia imbricata, specifically caused by Trichophyton concentricum. Alright. Ayan. Now again, that's a different types of tinia, again, depending on the area sa body kung unsang ginakos. So again, jock itch, mga common na mga mga fungal infections, no? You have again pilas or hadhad. You have athlete's foot, alipunga, no? Bun-i is like buni or bun-i. That is tinea corporis, no, sa body. Okay. So, very common no, sa mga commercial sa canistan and fungisol. Yes naman. Okay. But in some parts, in some part of my life naman din, or sometime in my life, I think naka-experience ko ani, like jock itch and also corporis, no? So, natangkang naman po. Okay, limpyo ako na pagka-person years. Okay, ayan, sige. Alright, now that's for the tinea. Alright, now we go na to the dermatophytes again that will cause infection sa hair. So they can be ectotrichs, endothrix, or favic. So when you say ectotrichs, outside lang sa hair, alright, ecto. Endo is inside yun sa hair sila mag-colonize or mag-grow. And then favic is mo-produce lang mga favic chandelier. Mara siya katong antler na hyphae. Alright, so later we'll go into that. Kasi itong mga species yun na mag-cause ano. Alright, now these are some pictures. Ayan. So as you can see, di ba, ringworm, mara siya ring. Alright, and they thought again initially that this was caused by a worm. That's why they called it ringworm. Alright, so again, alipunga. Usually sa foot is makitan siya sa, or makuha siya sa, ay mo grow siya sa mga in-between, sa mga toe fingers, or sa mga digits, sa mga toe. Ayan, and this is itchy, katol siya. Alright. And this is tinea imbricata. As you can see, dears, medyo ano siya, nice kay siyang appearance, no? More na maze in yung skin. Ayan. Tinea imbricata, this one. Ayan. This is caused again by Trichophyton concentricum. So as you can see, concentricum, di ba, mara siya concentric circles. Ayan. So again, this is really confined lang in islands, no? Areas in the Pacific and Asia. Alright. So ayan, that's for tinea species, or tinea, different types of tinea. Your tinea, again, as I mentioned, do not be confused with taenia sa imuhang parasite. Diba? Your taenia is a parasite. Your tinea is a type of infection caused by fungi. Alright. Your tinea is worldwide in distribution. Example lang aning example, tinea imbricata na endemic yun siya, or specific lang yun siya sa South Pacific and Asia na mga islands. Alright. Now, your tinea, usually we acquire that from the environment. So there are three sources of infection pwedeng sa animals, because animals can also be infected by your dermatophytes. So example na may mga pets na dermatophytes, makuha ninyo siya, ayan, dito ka mga cause of infection. Next is from another person, no? Direct contact, possible nag-share mo mga gamit, no? Mga belongings, mga towels, mga whatever. And that person contains tinea, possible na makuha po siya nimo. So make sure lang that you have your own personal stuff. Okay, you don't let it share, no? Unless na lang if the person is really free from tinea. But if na siya tinea and then nag-share mo belongings, then you can also get the tinea. Another one is we get it from the environment. Okay, so example, nagtiniil ka, no? Or nagkinamot ba ka or something nakatouch ka sa environment, possible dito siya makuha. So those are the three sources of infection nato with your tinea, all right? Or for your dermatophytes. Okay, all right. Now we go to the species of your dermatophytes. Your dermatophytes, again, we have three. We have microsporum, trichophyton, and epidermophyton. So first is microsporum. So your microsporum infects your hair and skin. So we have a biochemical test here. You have microsporum canis, zoophilic, gypsum, geophilic, meaning gikan sa imuhang earth or gikan sa environment. And you have microsporum odonai, all right? That is anthropophilic, meaning humans really have main gina-infect. All right, so canis, zoophilic, mga animals. Gypsum, geophilic, environment. Okay, and odonai, you have anthropophilic or humans here. Okay, now as you can see, gypsum, letter G, so geophilic siya na. Okay, now growth on rice medium, as you can see, ang negative ra is odonai. And for woodland fluorescence, meaning hindi siya mo fluoresce, you have microsporum gypsum. So later when we go to culture media also, we'll talk about the rice grain medium. But as you can see, microsporum canis, siya yun ang positive. So how do we remember? Canis, mar siya kanin, di ba? So canis, kanin, siya ang positive sa rice grain medium or rice medium. Okay? So microsporum canis, microsporum kanin. Okay? Ayan. Sorry naman. Okay, and woodland fluorescence, as you can see, if you show part of the hair, okay, with UV light, mo fluoresce siya. And usually it's color yellow or yellowish green. Okay, iyahang fluorescence. Okay, that's for microsporum. Okay. Next, you have epidermophyton. Ang epidermophyton, it only affects the skin and snails. Skin and nails. Sorry. And we only have one species that infect humans, your epidermophyton flocosum. And then trichophyton, it infects hair, skin, and nails. All right. So organism, Trichophyton rubrum, and Trichophyton mentagrophytes. All right. Now, Trichophyton rubrum, siya ang na ay abundant na red pigment. Okay? Negative urease and negative ang hair baiting test. For Trichophyton mentagrophytes, siya ang gamay lang ang red pigment, urease positive, and hair baiting test positive. Ayan. So, as you can see, hair baiting na ay V-shaped penetration sa hair, kanina sa arrow. Okay? So, very, very important. Press the buzzer agad. P mentagrophytes, urease positive good siya. Alright? And V-shaped penetration positive, hair baiting, hair perforation test positive. Okay. These two species of Trichophyton, Trichophyton rubrum and Trichophyton mentagrophytes, silang duha na species ang makakos sa majority of dermatophyte infections in the world. Okay, sila yun. Alright? Ang imuhang T. rubrum and T. mentagrophytes. Alright? So, rubrum, di ba nasa pangalan ng rubra, di ba? Rubrum, rubra. Red pigment. Abundant red pigment. Okay. Another species, you have Trichophyton tonsurans. Balloon forms ang iyahang Microconidea, and it requires thiamine for growth. Next, you have Trichophyton schoenlanii, alright? Fabic chandelier, katong na antlers iyahang hypha, alright? And it causes favus, tinia, capitis, alright? So, yung hair, katong na antler hyphae. So, let Schoenlanii lead, charot. Okay, ayan, sige. Amen. Alright, Trichophyton tonsurans, Trichophyton schoenlanii. So, I'll show you how to remember kung saan na mga areas sa body ang imuhang gina-infect sa microsporum. Sige, sa mga dermatophytes. So, we'll start first with microsporum, di ba? So, sa man ito ng mga areas sa body ang gina-infect sa microsporum, it infects your hair and microsporum, your hair and skin. Tama? Tama ba? Hair and skin. Epidermophyton, skin and nails. Alright? And lastly, Trichophyton, silang tulo. So how do we remember? Trichophyton, silang tulo. Hair, skin, and snail. Snails. Hair, skin, and nails. Alright? Next, you have epidermophyton. So nasa pangalan na epi, di ba, parang it talks about epidermis. So unsa raman na areas sa body, sa tulo, hair, skin, ug nails, ang naimurag epidermis or nasa epidermis, you have the skin and the nails. Alright? And microsporum, iyaha kay hair and skin. Tama? Hair and skin ba ang microsporum? Mali ako. Tama, hair and skin. Okay. Microsporum, hair and skin. So that's how we remember. Okay? Trichophyton, tulo. Silang tulo. Hair, skin, and nails. Alright? For epidermophyton, epidermis. No? Unsa man itong mga parts, unsa man sa tulo ang nai epidermis. So, murag skin and nails or dual epidermis. Skin, and nails. Alright? And then for microsporum, hair and skin. So, hindi siya mabot sa nails. Alright? Wala ko yung mnemonics for microsporum, pero inana lang akong pag-remember. Okay? Basta microsporum, hindi siya mabot sa nails. Hair and skin, ragyod siya. Alright? So that's how I remember. Kaya may mga question na, which of the following affects only the hair? Which of the following affects both hair and skin? So, please, ayan, mga mnemonics na to. Basta easy na lang, Trichophyton, nasa pangalan na, no? Tulo, hair, skin, and nails. Alright, ayan, sige. That's for the species of your dermatophytes. Okay, very important na mga dermatophytes. Okay, alright. Red pigment. Nako, abundant red pigment is your Trichophyton rubrum. Okay. Now sa bacte, ayan, let's see. Your bacte, there's also this one bacteria that produces a red pigment. Alright, very, very popular na red pigment. Kinsa ni siya? Si?
Serratia marcescens.
Press the buzzer agad-agad. Thank you very much. That's correct. Serratia marcescens. Magaling. And what is this pigment called? Kinsa ngalan?
Prodigiosin.
Ano to?
Prodigiosin.
Okay. Marcos, yes? Ikaw ba yan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Magaling. Very good. Galing. Serratia marcescens, prodigiosin, or prodigiosin. Very good. Sige, I'll take note of that. Okay. Prodigiosin, Serratia marcescens. Don't forget, no? Red pigment. Ayan. So that's why natin mga chika daw na Serratia marcescens can grow on katong host, no? Kanang sa communion, no? Sa mga Catholics dyan. And pwede siyang ma-appear as murag blood, no? So natin murag facts na na-share sa Facebook, ana. So that's why your Serratia marcescens is also known as the basta murag related to holy Pope bacteria something because of that. Okay? Alright, so don't forget that, no? Serratia marcescens, red pigment, prodigiosin. Ayan. Nako talaga. Alright, sige. Okay, ayan, sige. That's for the different species of your dermatophytes. Now we go na to your type of hair, no? 3 patterns of invasion by the dermatophytes sa mga hair. So ectothrix, again, mo developers sila outside of the hair, alright? Endothrix is again inside, and favus is your tissue and laminae. Again, mucosa to mga fabric chandeliers, and na siya honeycomb appearance sa sulod, kay hollow ang sulod, alright? Honeycomb appearance. Now take note kinsa itong mga species na mukosog ectothrix. Majority of the ones that cause ectothrix are the microsporum species. Please take note. Ang endothrix kay trichophyton. Okay? And for favus, good, press the buzzer, si tissue and laminae na good. Basta favus, fabric chandeliers, na press the buzzer, it's tissue and laminae. Alright? So again, ectothrix, microsporum. Alright? Endothrix, trichophyton. Alright? So as you can see, ang T-rubrum, pwede siyang ectothrix occasionally. Pero ang endothrix, ang trichophyton yun mismo kay endothrix. So majority of the causes ectothrix is your microsporum. For endothrix, it's trichophyton. So don't forget dears. Okay, endothrix, trix, kabristante, tsaka lang. Okay, alright. Ayan, sige. Now, ang dami bang slides? Okay, so we go now to the different characteristics of your dermatophytes. Starting first, microsporum canis. Okay, this is the zoophilic, no, gikan sa mga animals. Now, the Macroconnivia, as you can see, is large, multi-celled, and spindle-shaped. Ayan, spindle-shaped, iyahang appearance, and rough, iyahang appearance. Ang surface kay rough, no, medyo rough iyahang appearance. Microconnivia are quite absent or gamay lang, and terminal ends are sometimes curved. Ectothrix hair, green-yellow iyahang fluorescence, or yellow-green iyahang fluorescence. Okay, that's Microsporum canis. Okay, usually for the Microsporum species, ang atong lantawan are the Macroconnivia. Okay, because ang Macroconnivia ang mga na-specific na characteristics nila. Okay, your Microsporum canis, again, spindle-shaped, rough na Macroconnivia. Alright. Next, you have Microsporum gypsium or gypsium. Alright, your geophilic. The Macroconidium is still spindly or spindle-shaped, pero it's much broader. Alright, it's broader compared to your M. canis. Alright, rough-walled gapon and 3 to 9 cells. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ayan, so kanin mga cells. Ang nasa sulod are the cells. Alright, M. gypsium. Alright, Microconidia are single. Ayan, kanin mga gagmay or in clusters. Okay, alright. But again, as I mentioned, Microsporum usually we look at the Macroconidia. Alright, okay. Next, you have your M. odonai or anthropophilic. Conidia is usually absent or bizarre. A typical vegetative hyphae with terminal chlamydospores and apple green fluorescence iyahang ectothrix hairs. Okay, so you can see siya ang nai-rocket hyphae. As you can see, di ba, mga chlamydospores niya dears. Okay, di ba, we've mentioned the different types of chlamydospores, intercalary, sessile, terminal. So kani siya, this is an example of intercalary, kay within siya sa hypha. Okay, so rocket hyphae, ayan. So Microsporum oduinii, oduinii. Okay, ayan, sige. All right, and these are the chlamydospores. Ayan, as you can see, it's intercalary within the hypha. Okay, but again, the Connivia niya is quite absent or medyo few lang ang naka. All right, so that's for Microsporum species. All right. Next, your Epidermophyton flocosum, the only Epidermophyton species that affects humans. And it is the most common dermatophyte pod na siging gawa sa boards. Okay? Pila na yun siya. I-describe ang Macroconidia, basta ang description sa Macroconidia kay club-shaped, multi-celled, smooth-walled, press the buzzer agad-agad, that is Epidermophyton flocosum. Alright? Microconidia is not formed, Macroconidia lang. So as you can see, it's club-shaped, kani club, meron siya katong weapon na club. Alright, dili itong pang party. Alright, charot. And then smooth, as you can see, yung surface wala yung katong murag mga protrusions, unlike your M. canis and M. gypsium. Your E. flocosum is smooth-shaped, multi-celled, alright, and large, club-shaped, kanang good ears, mga presibuzzer, kanang naka-bold, alright? Muna siya inigawa sa boards, i-describe ang Macroconidia. And usually siya yung gawa sa boards, okay, ang Epidermophyton flocosum. Alright, so if wala ka kabalo sa answer, Epidermophyton flocosum na. Okay. Basta na-description of Macroconidia. Alright, basta take note lang, mga keywords, club-shaped, multi-celled, smooth-walled. Okay, agad-agad, Epidermophyton flocosum. Alright. Next, we go na to the Trichophyton species. Now, in contrast to Microsporum, ang atong lantawan sa Trichophyton are the Microconidia. Alright, so For microsporum, again, microsporum, atong lantawan are the Macroconnivia for species identification. For trichophyton, atong lantawan kay the Microconnivia. Alright? So again, for trichophyton, Microconnivia. For microsporum, sorry, Macroconnivia. Alright. So for T. rubrum, the Macroconnivia are pencil-shaped or few lang siya in appearance. As you can see, kani siya, more siya pencil-shaped. So di kay siya common, di kay daghan. Pero ang daghan niya kay Microconnivia. And the Microconnivia has an appearance of tear. No, more siya tear, more siya luha, no? Tear-shaped, alright? Single or lateral na siya sa kilid along the hypha. Alright? Again, rubrum, nasa pangalan na rubra, rubrum, di ba? Parang red, no? It forms an abundant red, wine red, water-soluble pigment. Usually seen sa likod sa iyang colony, reverse sa colony. Okay? Abundant wine red pigment. That's for T. rubrum. Next, for T. metagrophytes, Macroconnivia again is cigar shape, as you can see pataas. Alright? But again, gamay ra gyapon ang ma-produce. The Microconnivia are spherical and grape-like clusters. Ayan, very press the buzzer. Basta grape-like clusters of Microconnivia, press the buzzer, T. metagrophytes. Another important characteristic of T. metagrophytes, urease positive, please take note, and hair baiting or hair perforation test positive. So na V-shaped penetrations in muhang hairs. Please take note. T. metagrophytes, urease positive, hair baiting positive, grape-like clusters of Microconnivia. Alright? It can produce red pigment pero dili common and medyo gamay lang compared to your T. rubrum. Okay. Alright. Next, you have Trichophyton tonsurans. What you have to remember lang, balloon forms. Okay? Balloon forms, ayan, meron balloon. So meron siyang enlarged. Okay? Balloon forms, yung Microconnivia once the Microconnivia are old or nigulang na siya. Alright? Aged Microconnivia. Alright. Macroconnivia, Microconnivia, balloon forms lang yun. Basta balloon forms, T. tonsurans. Okay, so how do I remember ba na? Tonsurans. Basta balloon form. Okay? Alright. Next, you have T. verrucosum, rat tail, ang Macroconnivia, and Microconnivia are clave or meron club shape. And again, chlamydospores are in chains. Alright, so what you remember lang, what you need to remember, rat tail na Macroconnivia, Microconnivia are clavate and in chains. Okay, chlamydospores in chains. T. verrucosum, Trichophyton verrucosum. Alright. And next, you have T. schoenleni. Connivia is absent, pero again, as I mentioned, favic chandeliers. Ayan, di ba? It causes favus or antler, di ba? Antler ng mga hyphae. Ayan. And chlamydospores are also seen. Alright? Basta gani mga favic. Basta favic pa lang na word. Ayan, favic chandeliers, favic na ectothrix, endothrix, press the buzzer agad-agad, T. schoenleni. Alright? Okay. Alright. And the last of the Trichophyton species, your Trichophyton violaceum. As you can see, violaceum nasa pangalan na, kaya iyang culture color violet. Okay, iyang colonies color violet. Alright. Now, swollen, iyang hyphae, ayan, as you can see, and nasa cytoplasmic granules. So this is still a chlamydospore, intercaliary, no, swollen, no, ni hubag. Okay, ayan. That's Trichophyton violaceum. Again, take note of the mga keywords, dears, ha? Basta gani mga next charot. Balloon forms. You have balloon forms of your Microconnivia, T. tonsurans. You also have grape-like clusters of Microconnivia, nako press the buzzer agad-agad, T. metagrophytes. Ayan. Abundant wine red pigment, nako agad-agad, T. rubrum. Alright? Smooth-walled, club-shaped, multi-celled, Macroconnivia agad-agad, press the buzzer, epidermophyton, flocosum. Alright? Don't forget that. Okay. And that's all for your cutaneous mycoses. Again, atong i-focus are the dermatophytes. All right? Any questions, dears, before proceed to the next, the subcutaneous? Atong throat, charot. Any questions? Hopefully, yeah. Okay. Carry lang so far, na sometimes na ninyo, dears, na lang mo na-learn, or baka ano. Okay. Mga review na lang din siya sa inyo na-learn sa third year. So hopefully, na-refresh niyo ang memory sa na-learn niyo sa third year sa Myco. Okay? Hopefully. Alright. Any questions? Carry pa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige. Alright. Now we go na to the next type of mycoses, and that is your subcutaneous. So nasa pangalan na, these are now the mycoses or agents that cause infection in the deeper layers of the skin, no? So after sa skin, pwede siyang mo involve sa muscles, pwede siyang involve sa mga connective tissues, and pwede po sa bones. But again, usually these organisms, although nabot na siya sa deeper areas of the skin, dili siya necessarily na mo spread sa different organs. But depending again on the type of population, let's say if immunocompromised ang patient or young, old ba ng mga patients na ang immune system kay medyo weak, then possible yun ang pag-spread. Alright? But generally, okay, they do not spread to other organs. Alright? Okay. And usually these are, they produce mga ulcers, alright? And usually na yung mga draining sinus tracts, meaning na ay mga opening, and then kanang opening mag-produce siya mga nana or mga fluid. Okay? So, basa-basa siya, no, na mga lesions or mga ulcers na gawas ng mga fluid. Alright? Okay. Generally also, these organisms are introduced to the body through traumatic introduction. Example, natunok ba ka, no, or naigo ba ka o like wood or something, because these organisms are again common in the environment. Okay, and humans acquire it through traumatic introduction to the skin or to any part of the body. All right. Okay, so usually common siya in mga workers, no, that are exposed to that, such as mga agricultural workers, no, na pwedeng matunok or maigo, all right, or masamad sa mga woods, sa environment, or decaying vegetation, or sa mga hobbies, example ka ng mga gardening, all right, or ka ng mga magtiniil lang, mag-walk or something like that. So, muna siya mga possible sources of infection. Again, generally, they are introduced to the body through traumatic introduction, no, kanang nasamad ka, natunog ka, Alright. We'll start first with, of course, sporotrichosis, or also known as rose gardeners or rose handlers disease. Ako, Presbyophytes. Muna siya mga one of the mga Presbyophytes with sa myco. Basta rose gardener disease na ganina, or na case study na a girl or a woman is pruning, ayan, nag-cut daw siya sa mga rose bushes, or nagtanong siya sa mga rose na ko agad press the buzzer good, no? That is Sporotrix schenkii, all right, or sporotrichosis. Because again, usually makuha siya sa mga rose thorns, no? Sa mga thorns sa rose, ayan, pwedeng makuha ang organism. All right, so again, sporotrichosis or your rose gardeners, rose handlers disease. Okay. Now there are different types. You have lymphocutaneous, number one. Your lymphocutaneous is the most common, no? So pag example, pag penetrate sa usa ka-area nimo, pwede siyang ma-drain sa different lymphatic channels. So pwede siyang mo-spread ang lesion. So if mag-start siya diri, pwede siyang mo-spread sa different areas. Basta na siya yung lymphatic channels na naagian or na duol, alright? Pwede siyang mo-spread sa lymphatic channels and produce different lesions. That's lymphocutaneous. Na po yung ibang types na fixed cutaneous, meaning kung asa siya na-introduce, dito lang siya, di siya mo-spread sa imuhang skin, alright? Na extracutaneous, maabot siya sa other organs, pulmonary and disseminated forms. Usually, these are seen in mga immunocompromised na mga patients. Alright? Kani mga disseminated forms. Again, the causative agent is your Sporotrix schenkii. It's a dimorphic fungus. Ayan. Meaning, na siya mold phase and yeast phase. So, at room temperature, RT, iyahang mold kay rosette, floweret, or daisy petal ng mga Connivia. So, ang appearance niya kay commercial flowers, iyahang Connivia. And for 37 degrees Celsius, iyahang yeast kay cigar-shaped. Alright. Now, for lab DX, your definitive diagnosis is culture of the infected pus or tissue. And in biopsy materials, there's what we call an asteroid body or splendor hepli or hopli material. So later na picture para mas mag-gets. Alright. And this splendor hepli or hopli material is eosinophilic, no? These are eosinophils yun na nag-surround sa imuhang yeast sa tissue. So later, na-picture on that. Alright. There have been, ayan, zoonotic transmission reported from armadillo and infected cats. So possible. Zoonotic meaning nakatouch kag animal, nakay-pet na yung ani, nakuha mo from there. But generally, ang cause yun na to, or mode of transmission, or kung asa na to nakuha ang infection, it's through traumatic implantation or introduction of the organism to your skin. Alright? Okay. Now here are some pictures. This is the rosette Connivia. As you can see, mura flower. Alright? Rosette or daisy petal na Connivia. Ayan. This is the mold form of your Sporotrix. This is the yeast, as you can see, cigar, cigarillo, no? Cigar-shaped. And this is the asteroid body. Ayan. So this is known as the splendor hepli material, hopli. So kaning mga red deers are the eosinophils. Eosinophilic siya na nag-surround, no? Kaning center mo siya ang yeast cell, alright? And the surrounding material is eosinophilic. Muna siyang splendor hopli material or hepli material. So as you can see, it looks like an asteroid. Some describe it as star, no, star-like, or radiate, no, radiate siya, nagpalibot. Okay, so asteroid body, you have also star-like or radiate. All right. Now, as you can see, muna siyang lymphocutaneous. As you can see, nag-start na siya og one na penetration or kung asa siya na-introduce, and then spread na siya to the area because again of na-drain siya sa lymphatic channels. As you can see, if nag-start ba diri, na-drain siya sa lymphatic channels, muna siyang nagsunod-sunod na siya. Okay? So na-drain siya, meaning na-spread siya sa lymphatic channels. Alright? Okay. That's for lymphocutaneous, the most common form of sporotrichosis. Alright. So that's for the first one, sporotrichosis. Alright. Next, you have your chromoblastomycosis. Your chromoblastomycosis, they produce plaques or lesions, and in chronic infection usually, they produce cauliflower-like na mga growths, no? Or mga tumor-like masses, okay? Cauliflower in appearance, okay? Now, the causative agent, the most common is Fancesii or Fancesia, which has a mixed sporulation na type. You have Cladosporium, which only has Cladosporium sporulation. You also have Exophiala, Cladophialophora, Rhinocladiella, and Fialophora, which has only Fialophora sporulation. So take note, dears, kinay mga question na this type has a mixed sporulation. Ang answer ana is Fancesia. Okay? Press the buzzer agad-agad. Fancesia. Alright? Basta mixed sporulation. Meaning, pwede siyang, it may have a sporulation similar to Cladosporium. Pwede po siyang iyahang sporulation parehas ni Fialophora. Meaning, ang pwede niya ma-produce ng mga spores or Connivia, pare-pareho nila. So, mixed type. Okay? Alright. Pero kung only Cladosporium, Cladosporium. Kung only Fialophora, Fialophora. Okay? Now, these are dematiaceous modes, meaning nasa melanin sa ilahang walls, no? So darkly pigmented. In tissue, they form what we call muriform cells or sclerotic bodies. Or please change na lang, dears, typo na siya. It's medlar, dili medlar, okay? M-E-D-L-A-R, dili M-E-D-L-E-R. So typo siya, dears, medlar, okay? Medlar bodies, all right. And these are described as having chestnut brown ang color, copper pennies, no? Martial coins, all right? Copper pennies and black granules, all right. Now for lab DX, it's still histopathologic findings. Small dark dots from the lesion may be scraped and maka-examine ka og kani mga copper pennies, sclerotic bodies. Growth is moderate to slow ang culture. Colonies can be velvety to woolly. Usually ang chromoblastomycosis, dears, is chronic ang infection, okay? Dugay, all right? Ayan. So here's an example. Ayan. As you can see, sclerotic bodies, all right? It has a horizontal, tapos siya vertical na mga septations or lines, all right? So muna siya pasabot sa muriform, no? When you say muriform, it has both horizontal and vertical na mga divisions, all right? So it's it's arranged that way, na siya horizontal and vertical na septations or divisions. And here's an example of your cauliflower-like growth. As you can see, meron siyang cauliflower, no? So dagko siya ng mga lesions, all right? And this is chronic. Again, similar to sporotrichosis, again, it's through traumatic implantation, usually sa mga extremities. And the most prone na mga workers or na mga people are the agricultural workers, those that are prone, no, or those that are siging sa soil, no? Siging nag-work sa soil, agricultural workers, so possible na sila ang mas prone yun makakuha sa infection. Alright, that's chromoblastomycosis. Alright, so again, sclerotic bodies, copper pennies, alright, muriform, medlar bodies. Okay, alright. Next, you have mycetoma. Your mycetoma, again, are localized, no? One part lang of the body, chronic granulomatous infections. And what is very important is that iyahang lesions na abscess, magbasa, alright? And nasa draining sinus tract, meaning na opening, iyahang mga abscess, and pwede siyang magduga, alright? Magawa siyahang fluid. And makaproduce yung mga granules or grains, alright? And these granules or grains contains the fungal hyphae. Your mycetoma can be caused by two types. No, you have eumycotic or true fungi, and you have actinomycotic, meaning caused by fungus-like bacteria. Now, for eumycotic, daghang mga mga causes. You have Exophiala, Curvularia, Fusarium, etc. etc. So daghan, alright? And Pseudo-Lascheria boydii ang pinaka-most common good na maka-cause sa mycetoma. And then you have actinomycotic, of course, it's caused by fungus-like bacteria, nocardia, and actinomyces. Okay, so take note of that. Nako, fungus-like bacteria or filamentous na bacteria. They are bacteria, pero ilahang appearance murag fungi. Okay, so ilahang gram stain kay filamentous, alright? Ang ilahang colonies po kay medyo na ay mga murag same siya with same siya with your fungi. Okay, so take note of that. I hope na remember pa sa back then. Alright, okay. Now, eumycotic through fungi, sila yun ang caused by fungi, by the name itself. Alright. Now, again, for morphology, what we examine is your granules. Because again, ang iyahang samad or iyahang lesions, abscess, mo produce ang granules. Now, we examine the granules. Now, pag-examine sa granules, if makita kay mga hyphae, alright, mga septate fungal hyphae, then that's caused by eumycotic. But if makita nimo kay gram-positive, branching filaments, alright, then that is caused by actinomyces or nocardia. Alright. Now, for eumycotic, it could be caused, it could have clavidopodia, large spherical thick wall. Alright. Now, your eumycotic beers, pwede siyang ma-divide into the black grain mycetoma or the white grain mycetoma. So, ang black grain usually kani mga exophiala, alright? Kani sila ang black grain mycetoma because ang ilahang granules na ma-produce kay black. Alright? Okay. Now, for Pseudo-Lascheria boydii, usually, it is causing white grain mycetoma because ang iyahang granules na ma-produce kay white in color. Okay? Alright. Sige, that's for eumycotic or the true fungi na mycetoma. And for actinomyces, di ba, remember, mga lumpy jaw, ayan, sulfur granules, di ba, agad-agad, press the buzzer, yes, that's actinomyces. Now, the branching filamentous fungi. Don't forget that. Okay. Now, for lab DX, again, we examine the grains and granules. We mount in 20% KOH or ato siyang stain using H&E, per iodic acid shift, and methenamine silver. Okay, so muna siya yung lab DX. So, here's an example of your mycetomas. You can see, ayan, di ba? May abscess and actually mga buslot-buslot or the draining sinus tract. So from here, mugawas ang fluid, alright? Magnana siya or magduga, dira mugawas. And then these are the granule example, white grain siya or na mga black disorder kani. And under the microscope na mga hyphae na makita. So this is eumycotic. For actinomycotic, kinani mo makita. Again, it's branching, filamentous, ayan. First you can see it's still bacteria. Wala siya septation, no? Wala po siya kato mga spores. So this is bacteria. Branching filamentous, again, characteristic of your actinomyces, nocardia, which causes your actinomycotic mycetoma. Alright? Sige, so I hope na gets to siya. Alright. Next, you have your entomophtheromycosis or subcutaneous mucormycosis. So the same, it's traumatic implantation, but usually gikan sa plant debris. And we have two causes. You have Conidiobolus coronatus, and you have Basidiobolus ranarum. Your Conidiobolus usually affects the face, alright? And for Basidiobolus, kay proximal limbs in children. So according to Murray, ang Basidiobolus ang implantation, no? For Conidiobolus is through inhalation of the Connivia, alright? So from the sinus, no, mo-spread na siya sa imuhang face, and dito na siya mo-cause infection. For Conidiobolus coronatus. But for Basidiobolus, it's traumatic implantation, alright? Ayan. Now, for morphology, again, still hyphae, na po siya splendor hapli material, so katong eosinophilic na nag-surround, alright? And hyphal fragments are also seen. For lab DX, it requires biopsy, histopathologic examination, na yung mga eosinophilic infiltration and eosinophils, and again, the splendor hapli material, similar to your sporotrichosis. So here's an example. So this is for Conidiobolus, ayan, so face ang ma-cause or ma-infect. Again, mag-swell mong face, maghubag, alright? And then you have Basidiobolus, as you can see, more on lesions siya, alright? So that's seen again in Basidiobolus. So these are the two types of entomophtheromycosis, alright? Now for the examination, as you can see, Conidiobolus, ayan, merchang mga balls, no? Connivia, iyahang appearance. And then for Basidiobolus na siya beak, ang iyahang terminal or iyahang surface sa iyahang Connivia, alright? Na beak, alright, okay. Now in histopathology, as you can see, muli siya ang splendor hapli material, but in contrast to your sporothrix, di ba, yeast man siya. But for entomophtheromycosis, it's the hyphae, kaning taas, no? Na eosinophilic material, alright? So eosinophilic material, splendor hapli material, again, hyphae na siya. Alright? But in your asteroid body, sa imong Sporothrix is the yeast na naay eosinophilic material. Alright? Okay, so that's for entomopteromycosis. Alright? And the last, I believe, sa imong subcutaneous is your phaeohypomycosis. So by the name itself, it's pheo, no? Phaeoid. So these are the mycosis caused by your dematiaceous molds or dematiaceous saprobes. All right. Again, very common in immunocompromised patients, and it can lead to death also in immunocompromised patients. Brain abscess, ang most common CNS presentation, and these are the causative agents: Exophiala dermatitidis, or ang yung old name kay Wangiela, Bipolaris, Alternaria, Catomium, Curvularia, Fialophora, and others. So ato na siya ma-encounter later na po sa opportunistic. So mabalik na siya. Alright? But again, morphology, cell wall is darkly pigmented because of the melanin. Alright? And we use mga special stains such as Fontana Mason stain. In culture, black modes yun siya. Alright? And there could be vesicular swellings in its appearance. For lab DX, surgical excision of the cyst, ang tango na to, and then histopathologic examination again. Pigments is seen in H&E staining. So here's an example. Your phaeohyphomycosis, no, lesions, Japan, all right? And then, as you can see, hang stain kay dark. This is H&E because, again, of the melanin, all right? So that's for phaeohyphomycosis. So by the name itself, phaeohyphomycosis, it's a collective term for diseases caused by dematiaceous mold. So daghan kay possible causes, all right? So again, we'll discuss that, or makita na po siya also sa opportunistic mycosis. All right, okay. All right, so any questions, dears, before we proceed to the next group? That's all for subcutaneous mycosis. Again, usually they present as lesions, mga growth, no, or mga ulcers, no, na mga magduga, magnana, all right? That's the presentation of your subcutaneous mycosis. All right, all right. So before we proceed to the next, any questions, any clarifications? Almost done, I think, for today. Medyo taas-taas pa. Okay. Hopefully, mamanood natin siya kung 2 days. Oh my God, sana naman. Pero if not, then reading assignment. Joke lang, check lang. Alright, okay. Sige. Now, for the next group are the systemic mycosis. So by the name itself, di ba, nag-start na superficial, pinaka-outermost yun. And then cutaneous, di ba, medyo involved ng epidermis and keratin layers. Next, your subcutaneous, meaning deeper layers of the skin, including your muscles, your bones. Now we go now to systemic. So these are mycoses or infections of the fungi that really involves everything, no, of the body. Involves all parts or multi-organ involvement sa imong body. This is systemic mycosis. And this is generally caused by the dimorphic fungi. Kato silang dimorphic fungi. Alright? And may involve any of the internal organs of the body. And most of the time, generally good, these organisms are acquired from inhalation sa nature of the Connivia. Alright? But it depends gyapon sa population, dears, because in the immunocompromised, any fungus, as in any fungus, can be systemic if immunocompromised. Pero if immunocompetent, majority lang yun are the dimorphic fungi. So kaning systemic mycosis, dears, they are also known as endemic mycosis because again, these are fungi that are restricted or common in a certain part or certain area in the country or in the world. All right? And generally good, bahalag immunocompetent ka or immunocompromised, they really cause systemic mycosis or it involves multi-organ, daghan yung organs. All right? So I hope that you get it, no? Sila gyud ang established yun na systemic mycosis. All right? But again, if immunocompromised ang patient, any fungus has the capability to become systemic or pwede siyang mo-disseminate because of immunocompromised status of the patient. All right? Okay, sige. Now we'll start first with your blastomyces dermatitis. Again, it causes what we call the North American blastomycosis, also known as Hillcrest disease or Chicago disease. So it's common in the North America, all right? And it's called Hillcrest because it was first discovered by Hillcrest. Ayan, okay. Now this is again blastomyces dermatitis, the causative agent. The mycelial phase or the mold phase at room temperature, it has lollipop appearance of the Connivia, all right? And for yeast phase, very important is kanisha, dears, broad base and broad isthmus at constriction. Isthmus meaning bridge, no? Or merag connection sa imong mother cell and daughter cell. Okay? So broad base, broad isthmus at constriction. Okay? Now for lab DX, microscopic detection in tissue, culture at 22 degrees Celsius, and also ang specimens na best are your pulmonary specimens. Because again, as mentioned, these organisms are acquired by inhalation from nature. Ayan. Algofluoride and fluorescence microscopy are also seen to detect yeast forms. All right, that's for North American blastomycosis or blastomyces dermatitidis. Again, acquired from inhalation of the pathogens from nature. Again, most of your systemic mycosis, you can reach sa lungs nag-start. Okay? And then from the lungs, mo disseminate na siya to the other organs. All right. So here's an example, or here's the morphology. Ayan, as you can see, lollipop. Di ba? Mara siyang lollipop. Conidioforming stalk or branch, and this is the Connivia. Okay? And then again, as you can see, the yeast face, broad base, and then you have broad po ang neck. All right? And then gamay na ang daughter siya. Very, very press the buzzer grenadiers. Basta ang question or nakabutang sa case study, sa exam, broad base, broad isthmus of the budding cell. Ayan, press the buzzer. B, dermatitidis. Nasa letter B, blastomyces dermatitidis. Okay? Alright, so I hope na gets. Alright, so that's for blastomyces dermatitidis or North American blastomycosis. So nasa pangalan na it's common sa North America. Alright? Okay, ayan. Next, your Coccidioides brasiliensis, all right, which causes the South American blastomycosis. Again, nanapoy typo, dears, pasensya. This is Almeida, A-L-M-E-I-D-A. Okay, typo siya, dili Almedia. So dapat A-L-M-E-I-L-A-L-M-E-I-D-A. Okay, wrong spelling siya. Almeida, all right, dili Almedia. All right. So this is known as the Brazilian blastomycosis or the Lutz Splendor Almeida disease. All right, so it's common in the Latin America, but most common siya in South America, usually Brazil and mga inanana areas. Usually seen in mga common magud siya sa soil, all right, that is acidic or dapit sa mga rainforest. So dagan mga rainforest dito sa imuhang Brazil na area. So muna siyang common siya dito. All right. Now mycelial phase, again, it has intercalary, ayun nasa tunga, ang clavidopodia or na yung mga pyriform na microconivia. Now again, the very, very press the buzzer is the yeast phase. It has multiple buds attached to the mother cell. And that's why yung definitive or distinct description is mariner's wheel or pilot wheel. Ayan. Or Mickey Mouse cap to the wheel. Ayan. So masyag na yung Mickey Mouse sa imuhang wheel. So ayan. Mariner's wheel, pilot wheel, Mickey Mouse. Now press the buzzer agad-agad. That is para Coccidioides brasiliensis. Naku, press the buzzer good. Okay? Don't forget that. All right. Now, for Lab DX, demonstration of the characteristic yeast forms and microscopic examination of the specimens. You may also have culture and you may also stain the tissue. All right. But again, for systemic mycosis there, usually, ato ang definitive diagnosis is through examination sa tissue. Ang iyang mga yeast phase. Kaya dito kita maka-differentiate. Because usually, ang mycelial phase ay muhang systemic mycosis are usually similar lang siya with each other or medyo difficult to identify. So we look at the yeast phase, okay? And usually din naman, makuha na to siya sa tissue. So sa biopsy, no, mas makita siya. Alright? Okay, so that's for para Coccidioides brasiliensis. Alright? So again, mariner's wheel, pilot wheel, naku agad-agad, press the buzzer. Mickey Mouse cap to the wheel, again, para Coccidioides brasiliensis. So here's an example. Ayan. As you can see, chlamydospores, alright, P. brasiliensis. And you have the yeast phase, mariner's wheel, ayan, or pilot wheel. Meron siyang Mickey Mouse, meron siyang hidden Mickey, charot, okay? Ayan, so that's for P. brasiliensis. Okay, mariner's wheel, pilot wheel, naku agad-agad, press the buzzer, para Coccidioides brasiliensis. Alright, okay. Next, you have your histoplasmosis, alright? Histoplasmosis, or also known as the Darling's disease, Spelunker's disease, or cave disease. All right. So again, this is caused by Histoplasma capsulatum. And if you can remember sa atong discussion sa para, it may be mistaken as Leishmania. Because again, this organism is intracellular. All right. Usually seen inside the cells of the macrophages and the monocytes. All right. Now for mycelial phase, what you have to remember lang, Macroconidia kay tuberculate. Meaning, iyang Macroconidia na yung mga protrusions, na yung mga protuberance, na yung mga spike-like protrusions. Okay? Alright, that's for tuberculate. Now for the yeast phase, again, remember lang that it is intracellular. Makita siya sa monocytes and macrophages. That's why we can use the stain GEMSA or right stain. Okay. Now for Lab DX, direct microscopy, pwedeng serology also, antigen testing, no? And also DNA molecular techniques. Alright. Now usually there's common siya in soils na has, no? Or soils that have been enriched by bird or bat na mga droppings. Okay? Guano, mga tae, no? Tae sa bird, birds and bats. Okay, that's why it's also known as spelunker's disease or cave disease. Because again, spelunker meaning kato mga hilig o ato mga caves. Okay, all right. And di ba usually mga caves na yung mga bats. Okay, and the soil there, ma-expect ni mo na daghang tae sa bats. So therefore, daghan po kayong histoplasma there. That's why it's called spelunker's or cave disease. And as you can see, pwede po siyang makuha sa mga decaying buildings, kanang mga nag-excavate, nag-renovate, no? Possible na naay mga histoplasma capsulatum there na mga mold phase. Alright? Okay, so muna siya mga possible sources. Caves, no? Soil that is enriched with bat or bird droppings, mga tae nila, and or mga renewal projects, renovations sa mga buildings, mga old buildings. Okay? And again, for systemic mycosis, bahala kinsa na species, again, di ba? As we have mentioned, ang makuha nato is the mold phase, and inside the body, it becomes the yeast. Di ba? Ayan, so that's for the histoplasmosis. Okay? Spelunker's disease, cave disease. Basta gani case study ha, ni mga case study na niyato daw siya bat, niyato siya cave, niyato siya cave, or nagpa-renovate sila balay, nag-ayos sila balay, or naglimpyo sila mga bird cages like chicken coops. Ayan, example ka na. Bird roosts, chicken coops, mga puluyan sa birds. Ayan, inana. And then nagka-cause siya symptoms after, then possible that's histoplasma capsulatum. Okay? Alright, that's for histoplasmosis. Again, don't forget that. Alright, tuberculate, Macroconnivia. So here's a picture. Ayan, tuberculate, versus coronavirus. No? So tuberculate, again, nasa protuberance, nasa mga protrusions sa surface. Alright? And for the yeast form, as you can see, it's inside the macrophages. Okay? Inside the mononuclear cells. Alright? So that's for the histoplasma capsulatum. Alright. Next, you have your coccidioidomycosis or coccidioides immitis. Alright. Now, coccidioidomycosis is also known as the San Joaquin Valley fever, the valley fever, or the desert fever. Your C. immitis is considered to be the major biologic hazard to lab personnel. So I have mentioned this on lab safety now for the longest time. Diba? I mentioned that this is the most harmful. And again, this is the major good, the biologic hazard to laboratory personnel. And true enough, it is considered to be the most virulent, okay? The most virulent among all the mycotic agents, mapanis pa na or mapamold. Because again, just a few of the Arthroplania, if ma-inhale ni mo siya, makakos na dahil siya og disease. Okay? Inana siya ka-virulent. Inana siya makakos og symptoms good or makakos og disease. Okay? The most virulent of all the mycotic species affecting humans and the major biologic laboratory hazard to personnel. Please take note. Okay? All right. Now for mycelial phase, iyang very important characteristic is Arthroplania. So na siya Arthroplania, na disjuncture cells, and iyang yeast phase na siya spherules. All right? So ang spherules, kani siya, inside are the endospores. Okay? Ayan. Now for lab DX, you have histopathologic examination of tissues and direct visualization of the spherules. So inside the spherules are the spores. So kaning spherules mo na siya og sac, okay, that contains the spores. Okay? All right. Now here's a picture. Your C. immitis, ayan, as you can see, Arthroplania. In between are the empty disjuncture cells. And then you have the spherules. Ayan. Inside are the endospores. Okay? So sac-like structure that contains the endospores. Now, C. immitis is the main pathogen. And usually, it's endemic, no, or limited to the San Joaquin region sa Mohang, California, sa mga desert. Now, another species is C. posadaceae. Okay? Coccidioides posadaceae. Okay, right, ha? C. posadaceae. Alright? Ayan. C. posadaceae. And this is usually seen in mga cases outside of California. Siya na ang makakos. Okay? C. immitis usually sa San Joaquin Valley fever. San Joaquin Valley region sa California. Ang C. posadaceae is the outer mga infections outside of California. Alright? Okay, that's for Coccidioides immitis. Alright? So again, Arthroplania, okay? Spherules, major biologic hazard to laboratory personnel. Alright? The most harmful and the most infectious food. The most virulent among all mycotic species affecting humans. Alright. Now for H. capsulatum diaderes, ang H. capsulatum, nasa different variants or varieties. Okay? You have H. capsulatum variant capsulatum and variant duboisiae. Duboisiae. Ayan. Duboisiae. Alright? Your H. capsulatum variant capsulatum, siya makakos yun sa infection like pulmonary sa lungs. Alright? And siya po na makita sa kato mga areas, no? Spelunkers, no? Depende sa region. Usually siya ang common. Ang H variant, H capsulatum variant duboisii, siya ang common sa Africa. And usually yung mga cause kay mga lesions, no? Mga skin lesions ang iyang makos. Okay? Alright, so that's the different variants or varieties of H capsulatum. Alright? Okay, so that's for histoplasmosis and coccidioidomycosis. Alright, so don't forget mga other names last years ha, mga San Joaquin Valley fever, mga Spelunkers disease, North American blastomycosis. Nako, yes, baka lumabas. Sayang ang 1 point. Okay. Next, you have the last, I think, of the dimorphic fungi, your Penicilliosis marnefae. Your Penicilliosis marnefae, iyahang new name na kares Talaromyces, no? So it's under Talaromyces species, pero sa Penicillium siya before, okay? And among the Penicillium species, siya ang dimorphic fungi, okay? Because the rest of your Penicillium species are monomorphic, okay? So for Penicillium marnefae, again, nasa yung mga soluble red pigment and yung mga sporulating structure similar to Penicillium. And for yeast phase, ang very important lang kay nasa transverse septum, meaning nasa division sa ito nga, transverse. Okay? Now for for lab DX, microscopic examination and conversion to the yeast phase at 37 degrees Celsius is confirmatory. Actually, for the rest of your systemic mycosis, ang confirmation ginato or confirmatory test is the conversion to the yeast phase. Because again, we use the yeast phase to differentiate, okay, to speciate. Because again, it's through the yeast that we can see a lot of the characteristics. Mas maklaro na to siya. Okay? Alright, ayan. That's for Penicilliosis marnefae. Very endemic in Southeast Asia, no? In Thailand, Vietnam, no? China also because it's associated with the bamboo rat and Vietnamese bamboo rat. So possible na na-inhale siya or nakuha mo siya from the rats. Okay? Alright, that's for Penicilliosis marnefae. Alright, so here's a picture. This is the common appearance of your P. marnefae. Similarly siya with Penicillium with the Connivia and all that. But for the yeast phase, as you can see, kanina na arrow, this is the septum na gipasabot, transverse septum. Okay, alright. That's for the P. marnefae. Now we go now to the different clinical symptoms lang of your systemic mycosis, no? So as you can see, the rest, majority yun nila dears, mag-start sa lungs, no? Pulmonary yun ang involvement. So pwede na ay asthma appearance, allergic reaction, or pneumonia-like, no? And from there, pwede na siya mo-disseminate to the other organs, alright? So example for blastomycosis, very important lang pulmonary disease. Pero another form that is very common is cutaneous lesions, okay, sa blastomycosis. So possible na yung mga lesions na verrucous, meaning dry siya, na yung mga plaques or pwedeng ulcer, inana po siya. Erythematous siya, papular, na yung mga papius, no? So inana iyahang characteristic, no? For blastomycosis. Pulmonary again, pero pwede po siyang cutaneous lesions. Alright. For coccidioidomycosis, histoplasmosis, again, similar agad siya. Pulmonary, no? From there, it will then spread to the other organs, okay? In the body. Alright. So similar also with your paracoccidioidomycosis. There could be, again, pulmonary involvement. It can lead to dissemination to the buccal, mouth, nasal, and occasional GI mucosa. Na mga lesions or granulomatous lesions na ma-form. For Talaromyces marnefae or Penicilliosis, again, endemic siya to Southeast Asia. Again, disseminated Japan, multiple organ involvement, and it's usually fatal. So again, it starts with the lungs, all right? And from there, mo disseminate na sila. So similar din siya of presentation dears. Basta look lang good, depende lang din siya sa history, no? Asa gikan ng patient, endemic ba siya to this organism or not? All right. Now, there is this particular test known as the exo-antigen test. Okay, hindi na siya katong K-pop group. Okay, exo-antigen test. This is an immunodiffusion test. All right, and this is usually used for systemic mycosis. So we look at specific A bands for B dermatitidis, H and M bands for Histoplasma capsulatum, and exo-antigen 1, 2, 3 for P. brasiliensis. So I think wala na ako nabutang ni dears. Paki-note na lang. Exo-antigen 1, 2, 3 para Coccidioides brasiliensis. So as you can see, how do we remember? A bands, so it's seen in letter B, blastomyces dermatitidis. So nagsunod sila. A bands, letter B, blastomyces dermatitidis. H and M, ayan, so brand man di ay, histoplasma capsulatum. So H, di ba? H, and then M put sa last, di ba? So H and M. H&M bands, histoplasma capsulatum. So dili siya Uniqlo, charot. And then exo-antigen 1, 2, 3, P. brasiliensis. Okay, so again, A bands, letter B, AB, o yan, blastomyces dermatitidis, H&M bands, Histoplasma capsulatum, and lastly, exoantigen 1, 2, 3, your Coccidioides brasiliensis. Alright, okay. So that's for your systemic mycosis. Again, just take note that na-inhale na to ang mold, ang Connivia. Alright? And then, nakuha na to ang infection from them. Okay? Inside the body, from the mold phase, may muna siyang yeast phase. Sorry, the ideas, I forgot to mention, Coccidioides, kani siya. Coccidioides immitis, the ideas, usually makuha na to siya from soil, no? Soil enriched with pigeon droppings. Please take note. Soil na daghang tae sa pigeon. Pigeon, okay? Pigeon, okay? Pigeon droppings. Again, maka-enrich na siya sa soil with pigeon droppings. Very gusto, like ni Coccidioides immitis. Again, take note, alam ko mention diyan. Okay, pigeon droppings na soil, alright? Para kakita na siya, you have Coccidioides immitis. So basically, dears, no, ang soil mismo, pigeon droppings. And ang soil na dito si Coccidioides immitis. So ganahan siya dito. So it's not that coming siya from pigeon ng imuhang C. immitis. Ang tae lang dito sa pigeon, okay, naka-enrich siya sa soil that contains the C. immitis. And dito siya mo cause na or makapadaghan siya dito. Okay? Alright. Pigeon droppings, and for Histoplasma capsulatum, bird, okay, pwedeng chicken or whatever, bird or bat na droppings. Okay, na mga tae. Alright. So that's all for systemic mycosis, dears. Ayan. Any questions? Any clarifications before we continue to the last nugget for today? Alright. So again, ito na yung mother's wheel, pilot wheel, na appearance sa mga yeast. You have? Huh? Yes?
Coccidioides brasiliensis.
Okay, P. brasiliensis. Agad-agad. Mariner's wheel, pilot wheel, wag na mag-isip. Wala nang iba, siya lang yan. Okay? Alright. Tapos, katong makitaan or makuha na to from soil enriched with bat or bird droppings. Kakinsa to? See?
Ectoplasma capsulatum.
Okay. Exoplasma capsulatum. Aside from that, also, pwede siyang makuha from mag-clean mo mga bird houses, ha? Mga bird coops, no? You also have mag-renovate mo balay ng mga old decaying buildings. Basta, mga keywords na siya, dears, in case na mga case study. Okay? Alright, ayan. Sige. So that's for systemic mycosis. Again, nag-start siya sa lungs because again, they are primarily inhaled, alright, from the environment, ang Connivia of the mold, and then from there, it becomes the yeast inside the body and then causes the infection. Alright, okay. Now for the last group today, you have the opportunistic mycosis. So by the name itself, these are fungi that in general, normal circumstance, they do not cause infection. But once they're introduced to the body of an immunocompromised patient, then now they become infective, all right? They can cause infection na. And by the name itself, that is opportunistic, no? Like bacteria for opportunistic bacteria. Now, because of a lot of diseases now, no, in the recent times na immunocompromised ka, or a lot of procedures, tambal, treatment that can make you immunosuppressed or immunocompromised, the list of fungi that were once considered to be non-pathogenic is now becoming longer, no? Mas daghan ng fungi na na-include that can become opportunistic. So any fungus good, if you are immunocompromised, it can become opportunistic. All right? But again, generally good, if you're immunocompetent, okay, good. No, it will not cause any infection to you, all right? Because generally these are low virulent, no, na mga organisms. All right? So this is the table, agents of opportunistic mycosis. You have mga yeasts, candida, and cryptococcus. You have also Trichosporan osobnapod, Rhodotorula, and Blastoschizomyces. You have the modes, Aspergillus, ayan, and the mucormycetes, other hyaline modes, and the Demetiaceous modes. All right. So for today lang, atong last is we'll discuss kaning mga mucormycosis. Your mucormycosis is caused by your hyaline, your order Mucorales. So this is under Zygomycetes, diba? So these are mucormycosis. So daghang mga species na possible. Number one is your Cunningham-Mela. Your Cunningham-Mela species, again, usually it can cause disseminated infection and can be recovered muna sa sinuses. Because again, still the same, inhalation pa rin ang mode of transmission. Morphology, na sporangiophores and sporangios. Example kani. This is a sporangiophore, and these are the sporangios, all right? And the colony is cottony, as you can see, Russian cotton, all right? Fluffy, all right? That's for Cunningham-Mela species. So take note lang, sporangios, inside are the sporangiospores, all right? So sporangios, daghan kayo siyang mga circle na mga structures, all right? Next, you have your Lichthymia or Absidia. So the old name is Absidia, but now it's known as Lichthymia. So again, it can cause thrombosis and necrosis of tissues. It's seen in patients with diabetic ketoacidosis, and it can spread to from the sinus pa rin nag-start, it can spread to your orbits, face, palate, and brain, which causes rhinocerebral mucormycosis. All right? Now again, sporangiophore and sporangioles or sporangiospores, and there could be rhizoids present. Now take note, dears, ang imuhang appearance sa Absidia. Take note that stolon, di ba? Stolon is a hypha that connects groups of hyphae. All right? Okay, that's stolon. Now the rhizoids, nasa kilid. Now, in the middle, dito mag-start ang sporangiophore. That's characteristic of Absidia. Take note. In the middle, walay rhizoids, ha? Dito mag-start ang sporangiophore. Okay? Please take note. Now, sporangiophore, again, naimrag vesicle swelling sa tunga, kanisha. This is known as the columella. Alright? And from the columella, mo gawas na ang sporangium, and inside the sporangium are the sporangiospores. Okay? So take note. In the middle, walay rhizoid, dito mo start ang sporangiophore. That's characteristic of Lichthymia or your Absidia species. Okay? So again, colonies pa rin, still the same, woolly or and grow rapidly. So mura siyang cotton pa rin in appearance. Next, you have the mucor species. It causes rhinocerebral mucormycosis, such as this, all right? And the rhizoids are absent. So as you can see, it is dematiaceous, all right? Color brown, all right? And it causes, again, rhinocerebral mucormycosis, as you can see. And this mucor species, dears, is one of the causes, or siya tong nabalita sa India na nag-cause of black mold fungus, okay, na infection among mga COVID-19 infection. If you're familiar, if you naka-remember mo ato na news, during that time na nag-outbreak yun sa India of COVID-19, di ba? Nato yung news na ay mucormycosis or marag fungus infection na nag-cause of secondary infections that were deadly. Because again, in COVID-19, you can be immunocompromised because na yung mga tambal such as steroids, no, na mga treatment that makes the immune system weak or dili nimo ipa-immunosuppress nimo ang immune system, no? I-suppress nimo ang immune system. So therefore, possible gid ang mga opportunistic infections. So sa India, muni siya ang mucor species ang naka-cause ato. Black mold fungus, and muni siya yung mga presentation, di ba? As you can see, black, no? Rhinocerebral mucormycosis. All right? Okay, so that's for mucor species. All right. So again, that's for mucor species. Muna siya again ang naka-cause sa mucormycosis ay muhang outbreak sa India. Okay. All right. Ayan. Next, you have rhizopod species. Rhizopod species is the most common among the mucorales that cause infection. And rhizopus is also the species, one of the species that causes molds in the bread, no, in breads. There are rhizopus species. And Rhizopus arizus is the most common cause of human mucormycosis. So still the same, rhinocerebral mucormycosis seen in patients with diabetes and DKA. All right. So sporangiospores, nagyapon, sporangiophores, na brown rhizoids, and there's an umbrella-shaped structure at the end of the sporangiophore. So again, colonies are still the same, woolly. It covers the entire surface of the medium. All right. So here's an example. As you can see, rhizoids, okay, sporangiophore, and then the columella and sporangium. Now take note, ang difference sa rhizopus, dears, and Lichthymia, as you can see, as mentioned, ang Lichthymia or Absidia, ang yung sporangiophore, nasa tunga of the stolon. Walay rhizoid diretso underneath. But for your rhizopus, as you can see, the rhizoids are already underneath, agad-agad sa imuhang sporangiophore. Nagets. So that's the difference between rhizopus and Lichthymia, because same sa appearance. But look at the rhizoids. The rhizoids are again underneath, immediately sa sporangiophore. Okay? But for Lichthymia, again, as mentioned, nasa sa in the middle lang. Alright? So that's for rhizopus species. And muna siyang umbrella structure, dears. Pag rupture sa imuhang sporangia, alright? Pag rupture sa sporangia, mabili ng umbrella-shaped structure known as the columella. Okay? So muna siya mabili. And then muna siya mga spores na release sa environment. Okay. Alright. Sige. Next, you have your syncephalastrum. Alright. Syncephalastrum, rarely implicated lang, but there have been cutaneous infections. It causes, or it has this merosporangia. So merosporangia, it is stalks, no? Pataas na mga sporangiospores. Okay? And sometimes confused with aspergillus on initial examination. Alright. So that's for your syncephalastrum. Alright. Now for the other hyaline molds, your hyaline molds, you have Fusarium. Take note lang, it is the important cause of fungal keratitis, okay, sa eyes. it can disseminate also, and there could be cutaneous nodules with central necrosis. Now take note lang, very important, fusiform or sickle cell shape iyahang mga macroconivia. So muna siya, take note lang dito. Very distinct characteristic, fusiform, sickle cell shaped na macroconivia presbuzzer fusarium spp. Okay, all right. Now again, colonies, again, cottony pa rin. Color can be a lot of colors, blue, green, beige, salmon, lavender, purple, red, and violet. Okay. Cultures of blood and biopsy ang imuhang recommended procedure. All right. So again, sickle cell shaped. All right. Sickle cell shaped, fusiform, macroconivia presbuzzer, that is fusarium species. All right. Next, for pseudosporium species, again, disseminated infections. There could be corneal ulcers, etc., etc. And then Connivia, again, is one-celled, elongate, and pale brown. Singly or pwedeng in balls. Ayan. And colony is still woolly to cottony, and color can be smoky brown to green. All right. Next, you have your acremonium. Acremonium species, take note lang, it can be disseminated pa rin. Hematogenously, similar with fusarium species. Again, ellipsoidal ang Connivia, as you can see, ellipsoidal ang ihang Connivia, and they form a conidial mass. So there's a group of Connivia, and Fialoconnibia ang nag-hold nila. All right? Again, that is your acremonium species. Connivia is ellipsoidal. Ayan, as you can see, ellipsoidal. All right. Now, cottony colonies pa rin, and whitish gray or rose imuhang color. Next, you have Paecilomyces. Your Paecilomyces is, again, can cause invasive disease. Port of infection happens through breaks in the skin or intravascular catheters. Again, you have their Fialoconnibia. So, kani siya mga ginagmay deers. Again, as we have mentioned, the Fialoconnibia nag-hold sa imuhang mga Connivia. Alright? Okay, Fialoconnibia. Alright. As you can see, medyo niwang siya na pagka-Fialoconnibia. Alright, okay. And then, next, you have colonies are still powdery, velvety color. A lot of colors also pwedeng ma-demonstrate sa mga colonies. Again, Fialoconnibia, and then ang sa taas ay the Connivia, Fialoconnibia. Alright. Next, you have also penicillium. Your penicillium, di ba, you're all familiar. Penicillium is everywhere, no? It's in the environment good. And it's also rarely implicated lang in infection because it is inhibited by 37 degrees Celsius. But it can cause chronic fungal sinusitis. Now, what you have to remember lang, dears, kaya na siya metulae. Alright? Your metulae is an additional structure. So this is the metulae, alright? Kani siya mga supporting structure. And then the supporting structure or the metulae holds the Fialoconnibia. Ayan. So metulae, Fialoconnibia, and then the Connivia. Alright? So na siya additional structure lang. Alright? So pwede siyang chains of Connivia. Alright? Pero na siya metulae. So additional structure, supporting structure. Metulae, this one, and then the Fialoconnibia, and then the Connivia. Alright? Ayan. So that's for penicillium. So remember, di ba? Penicillium, the first antibiotic that was discovered by Alexander Fleming was from Penicillium notatum. No, he discovered a colony, no, or a culture of Penicillium notatum, anay Staph aureus diay, Staphylococcus culture na natubuan o mold Penicillium, and then nakita niya na walay growth of staph around the Penicillium notatum na growth. That's why he produced siya further by additional scientists, okay, and para ma-purify ang substance from Penicillium notatum to produce penicillin. Penicillin, all right? Diba? Penicillin, the first antibiotic, diba? Ayan, don't forget that, Penicillium notatum. A lot of our antibiotics also come from fungi, example, or bacteria such as streptomycin. Nasa pangalan na, it comes from Streptomyces, o diba? Ayan. Erythromycin, nalimot ko siya. Basta a lot of them comes from fungi po. All right? Okay, sige. That's for Penicillium. It can cause disease in the immunocompromised, pero rarely lang. All right, okay. Next, you have your Geotricum, hapit na gyud, pulmonary disease. Very important lang to take note, Arthroplania. Okay, Geotricum candidum, Geotricum species, Arthroplania. It may resemble Trichosporon, all right? And colonies may resemble Coccidioides species po. All right? Geotricum, Arthroplania lang. That's what you have to remember lang. Arthroplania. All right. Trichoderma, last, your green packets of Connivia. As you can see, nag-kumpul-kumpul sila. All right? And then Connivia, again, remain clustered in balls. And colonies may be green to granular with abundance of Connivia. All right. Okay, sige. All right. Next, last na, I think. Yeah, last na lang ni siya. All right. So last for today, your Scopulariopsis. All right. As you can see, the Connivia are broom-like in structure. Meron brooms, all right, known as scopula. Ayan. And meron light bulbs good. All right. And they form from basipetal chains, meaning gikan diri sa pinaka-base mag-start ang Connivia ma-form. Okay? So mga bagong Connivia diri sa base mo form, basipetal chains. All right? Broom-like structure, meron brooms, okay, known as a scopula. That's why Scopulariopsis species. All right. Okay. Now for Monday, for A, B, and EF, we'll just continue and then until the end. Let's see kung asa ta kutob ra gyud, kung pila ka hours atong kaya ani. And then for GH and GH no sa Saturday lang ta next week. Okay. Okay. So direct ako to beers for today. Any questions before we leave and before we end? Grabe, dami natin na chika.